Gannon,
Present.
Senator Crawford,
Here.
Senator Carter, Senator Coleman,
Here.
Senator Koenig, Senator Rizzo, Senator Washington.
We have a quorum. We will be executing on Senate Bill 900 and then hearing SJRs 48, 49, 51, 56, 59, 61, 73, 74, 77, 79, 81, and 83. I move that we go into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Let's see. Okay, which one are we going to hear first? Okay. Okay, I move that we take up Senate Bill 900. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. This is the bill we heard from Senator Black relating to regional jail districts. I move that we vote Senate Bill 900 out of committee. Do pass.
Second.
There's been a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Gannon,
Aye.
Senator Crawford,
Aye.
Senator Carter, Senator Coleman,
Aye.
Senator Koenig, Senator Rizzo, Senator Washington.
Okay, 4 ayes, 0 noes, and the bill passes out of session. We now will go out of executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Like I said earlier, we're going to be hearing 12 bills. To help the process, the bills have been grouped into similar content. 2 senators will present their bills and witnesses will follow. If you are testifying on multiple bills, you will need to come up one time. Just make sure all bill numbers are listed on your witness form. We will start at 3 minutes, but may go to 2 minutes if necessary. We will start with Senator Hoskins' SJR48 and Senator Coleman's SJR74. Senators, if you are ready, you may proceed.
Rock, paper, scissors?
I don't care. You go first if you want. That's fine.
Thank you, Senator Hoskins, for letting me go first.
And fill out we haven't got to that yet. Sorry.
Mary Elizabeth Coleman, representing the 22nd Senatorial District, happy to be presenting my SJR74 along with Senator Hoskins' SJR48. Those are identical bills and model language that was provided by Missouri Right to Life. I think that there's an attempt to frame this issue primarily and only exclusively as an abortion issue, with the abortion initiative petition process already starting. But this is something that people have been concerned about, our constitutional integrity, for a very long time. There's been many attempts to try to solve that problem in a variety of different ways. It should be harder to change the Constitution than to change state statute. And no one in this bill is attempting to take away the ability of the people to change state statutes using the existing process, but it is making sure that we aren't making statutory changes through a constitutional process. We have a number of issues that are complicated, that are often not fully vetted when they get into the Constitution, that creates an administrative nightmare. And frankly, also overturns the will of the people and all of the amount of time that people have spent trying to elect representatives and senators who hold their views, that they do an end run around it, often with money from out of state. So this is an attempt to make sure that every congressional district has representation, that we are using just a simple majority, so 5 out of the 8 congressional districts have to approve a measure in order for it to pass. So this is not even as difficult as it is to collect signatures to put something on the ballot, where you have to have 6 of 8 congressional districts representation. You just have to have 5 of 8. And with that, I'll yield any time that I have to the Senator Hoskins.
Any questions for the senator? Senator, you may inquire.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Senator.
With the exception of Clean Missouri, what other initiative petition in the last 10 years has been overturned, or have the people who you say don't like those constitutional amendments, what has been done to overturn any of those?
No, I think that's right. So there was an attempt statutorily to change right to work that was successful, that the
Was
legislature
there a
had passed,
statute?
but
Was there an
wasn't a
initiative
constitu-
petition to do that? Because see,
There-
a statutorily thing, that's us changing it and not necessarily listening to our voters. But did the voters, you know, IP is the voice of the citizens. So I want to know what, besides Amendment 3, besides Clean Missouri, Cleaner Missouri, whatever you want to call those two, are there any others where an initiative petition process was brought forward to reverse something that was added to the Constitution?
So constitutionally, that was the only one. There have been statutory examples.
Okay, so
To my knowledge, I have to tell you in all honesty,
none,
I don't have my notes in front of me.
I have them.
Okay, great.
It's a 0. My other question is, explain to me which ones that have passed in the last 10 years are bad for Missourians.
Absolutely. So I think that Clean Missouri was a bad
Besides
example.
that one, we already talked about that, so let's move on
that
to
was
the
a bad
other ones.
example, or a good example, I think, of something that was bad and that there was enough pressure put forward to make a change. I think that the administration of the pot rules under legalizing marijuana has been administratively difficult, and I don't think that it is set up in a way that most members of the legislature think is really the best way to handle that. The licensure process was very difficult, and in fact, there was a lot of public comment and testimony and pushback against that process, but then COVID hit and it kind of sucked all the wind out of the sails of the dispute about that process.
So let's talk
there's a
about
couple of good ones.
marijuana. You're saying that was a bad one, yet
Administratively, I think
we've
that the way
sold
that
over
it
$1
was,
billion in marijuana, both recreational and medical, right?
So again, what my point is to say is that the process with which that program is administered, and I would be open to having a conversation about maybe you can only change the Constitution and for policy ideas, but how you do it. So if they had said there will be a legal process for marijuana, that would have been preferable than putting in all the regulatory scheme of how that was going to work constitutionally. Our founding document should be a founding document and not a document that is an administrative one.
And shouldn't
that's-
our founding documents be able to have the voice of the people?
Absolutely, which is why I think it's really vital that this proposal that I'm putting forward, along with Senator Hoskins, is having a simple majority of the congressional districts to make sure that every part of the state is represented.
So can we do that for our statewide electeds also? Because, I live in a community where I love my governor, but my district may not. So would we like to, why is it okay
I would welcome
let
to
me
have a
finish,
conversation.
please. Why is it okay to silence the voice of the people for issues that they have attempted to have us as electeds fix or bring forward for decades, but not okay to elect us individually?
So I'm open to having conversations about other items. I think right now this is about trying to make sure that the policies that are in our governing documents are able to be guided by more than just whoever shows up at a specific election plus one.
But isn't
vote.
that how all elections are?
I don't think that that's appropriate for our
I think
Constitution.
President
And federally-
Trump just won a primary in Iowa with 15,000 folks because that's all who showed up. So that, and I'm not disputing President Trump. I'm using this as an example. All elections are who shows up.
So, Senator, I think that we'll be able to have a longer and more lengthy conversation if this gets to the floor, but I'm worried about all the people who've traveled here to testify.
I'm not. They here because they don't like this.
Maybe.
So-
We'll see how many like and dislike.
Yeah, that's why they here. So, except for Right to Life, of course. She's going to always, she and I, we have our own love affair. Okay. I'll let Senator Hoskins go.
Thank you, Senator.
Any other questions for the bill handler? Seeing none, we will begin.
Yeah,
Here, Hoskins. Okay. Senator Hoskins?
thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. For the record, State Senator Denny Hoskins, representing the 21st Senatorial District, here today to present SJR48 along with Senator Coleman's SJR74. The bills are identical. They are absolutely alike, and so I won't go into a lot of detail exactly on what that SJR is. I mean, basically, like Senator Coleman explained, it's under current law to change the Missouri Constitution. It's 50% plus one person. And what our bills would do, it would be 50% plus one person statewide, and then 50% plus one person in 5 out of the 8 congressional districts. So I agree with Senator Coleman that it should be a little bit harder to put something in Missouri Constitution. Did you know we have bingo in the Missouri Constitution? Some of the other things that, no one is taking the right and voice of the people away. In order for this to pass and these changes to pass, it actually has to go before a vote of the people in order to protect the Missouri Constitution. In what we've seen is we've seen a lot of what I call dark money, special interest money coming in from out of state. And in fact, we saw $1.9 million in 2020 come into the state regarding initial petitions. We saw $3.2 million in 2018 come into Missouri. And then overall, nationwide, we saw $1.2 billion come in nationwide to affect initiative petition changes. Like I said, I just believe that it should be a little bit harder to change the Constitution in the state of Missouri. And when we talk about, Senator Coleman made a very good example, I think, administratively as far as some of the rules regarding marijuana. So I was a strong advocate and a strong fighter out on the Senate floor because I did not feel children were adequately protected in that marijuana rule and legalizing marijuana. And in fact, you could have had pot gummies in the shape of Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny and things like that. And so I fought hard to make sure that that passed in state statute. Was not my bill. I don't remember the exact bill number, but to say that, hey, if you're taking those marijuana gummies, it can be in shapes such as squares, circles, triangles. But, let's face it, if you're putting a pot gummy in the shape of Santa Claus or an Easter Bunny, that's not appealing to adults. That's appealing to kids. And so I was glad to help work on that and make sure that some of those items were not advertised to kids. Because, when we see, if you see some of these marijuana candy bars and things, I mean, if you like Kit Kats, there's marijuana Kit Kats that look exactly like a regular Kit Kat, except it may be spelled with 2 T's at the end instead of just 1. And so I was also helpful and made sure that any of those marijuana candies actually had THC infused and a symbol on there, because all too often I think children can get confused on those. So while a 30-second commercial may sound very appealing and very good, it doesn't really go into a lot of explanation as far as vetting this process. And these constitutional amendments, I mean, these are in our Constitution. They need to be vetted more appropriately, not just based on some 30-second slick television ad. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from committee members? Senator Washington?
Hi, Senator.
Hi, Senator Washington.
I'm just going to hit a little bit of what you said.
All right.
Now, do we have any numbers in the state that show how many children have been able to get these Snoopy gummies or whatever the case may be?
No. And in fact, because of the law that was passed, they can only use circles, squares, and triangles, basic shapes. They can't have Snoopy gummies or Taylor Swift gummies.
So
or
let's
anything
put
like
it on
that.
the record. Can a 12-year-old even go into a marijuana shop?
Well, they're not supposed to.
Can they legally go into a marijuana shop?
They're not supposed to, but I can guarantee you that there are children here in the state that have actually.
I don't want to go.
access to
I don't want to
marijuana.
guess. Don't forget, I'm a lawyer, so I got to be able to have stuff that I can take to trial.
Right.
So that's how I operate even here. And I can't take what I think. I have to take the actual evidence. So if we don't have any actual evidence, that says that our children have been going into the marijuana shops, then I don't think we can just presuppose because we want to
Well-
incite people or get people
So you're-
upset.
Senator, you're
Let me
saying that-
finish.
well,
So when you
I
go
just- I'm
into
trying to
one, you
answer
have
your
to show
question.
your ID, right?
I've never been in a marijuana shop.
Okay, so I went because I'm on JCAR.
Okay.
So you have to show an identification before you even see what's in there for sale. There's a whole separate room that you come in. Now, I ain't never smoked weed in my life. My siblings did. But she ain't
Likewise.
listening, so she
I'm
only
the
got
same-
one left and she ain't
likewise,
listening,
Senator.
so she in California. But my point is, there does appear to be a lot of security before you are allowed to where the product is. And you have to show your ID to get in. And I think I watched people show their ID to also purchase. So a record, I guess, is kept so that the state, that we know how much people are actually buying throughout the state. So I just kind of wanted to point that out, that I think is very difficult, and we don't have a record. And you know, we've heard from the department several times that that's not been an issue with them, that children have been able to go in and access it. I'm not saying they mom and daddy didn't buy it for them, but that's something different, and I can't be in their house and tell their mom and daddy what to do.
Senator, I think my comments were based on the shapes, about marketing to specific kids with, and making sure that those, I mean, if you've been in a marijuana shop, and we've seen examples on the internet, and a Kit Kat wrapper looks just like a Kit Kat wrapper.
I understand
without
what you're
one.
saying,
And
Senator,
so
but
I
I'm
wanna
not
make
marketing
sure
to
that-
them if they can't come in and get it. You know, I'm an African American, and my mother is one of those people that couldn't even go to a Methodist school, and we're Methodist because she was black. So you can market to her all day, every day. You could have marketed that Central Methodist was an amazing school, but she can't go. As an African American, I went to the school, the best school in the state, in my opinion, that didn't accept black people until right before I was born. So you can market Mizzou to everybody in the world, but if you didn't let me in, it doesn't matter. And that's all I'm trying to get you to see is I can market some Kit Kats, I can market some gummies in the shape of a heart, a star, whatever, but if the kids can't actually go in there and get it, then that's not an issue. I love that you put that in there. Please believe me, I
Well,
do.
I
But let's
hope- I
move
hope
on to
that you
something
do.
else. Have you ever received any funding for your campaigns outside of the state of Missouri?
I would say the vast majority of mine are from the state of Missouri. Yes.
So is that a yes? Have you
mean, I've been-
ever received any money
I can't
from
say- I can't
anybody
say
outside the state of Missouri?
I can't say never. No, in fact, one of my aunts, she does live in Illinois, and so I know that she was one of the first people to actually give to my state rep.
Have you
campaign.
received money from a PAC, or has your PAC received money from anyone outside the state of Missouri?
I can't confirm or deny that, Senator. I like I said, I've been in the legislature for 15
I can.
years.
You have.
Okay, which ones were they?
I believe many PACs receive funding from a lawyer that lives in Kansas.
I don't know who you're referring to.
I don't want to say his name because I want some of his money too.
Well, at least,
But he
at least
doesn't
we're
live
being
in
honest,
Missouri.
Senator.
So I just wanted to clarify that we all are receiving funding. Most of us are receiving some funding that does not come necessarily from our constituents here in Missouri. Thank you.
Any other questions for the bill handler from the committee members? Yes, Senator.
Hi, guys. Just briefly, so I see we have a list here we're going to be hearing, obviously, as everyone knows, a bunch of initiative, petition, reform stuff. Is this, I guess eventually we'll join yours two together or whatever to where I can refer to it as one. Is that okay? So would this be the official Freedom Caucus position, this one? Or is it going to be Senator Koenig's later, Senator Eigel's, Senator Moon's?
Most I can't speak on behalf of the entire Freedom Caucus. We have a lot of Freedom Caucus members that have different versions of this bill. I believe congressional districts is the best path forward. I know that there's other members of the Freedom Caucus, and obviously other members are not part of the Freedom Caucus that have different ideas than this. But as far as what I support, I think concurrent majority with the congressional districts is the best solution.
Okay, so I guess the question is, we've heard all the logjam and so on and so forth that's happened upstairs, and that's whatever it is. I'm just curious, if it were Senator Koenig's bill that got through, would the logjam be cleared up instead of yours? Or if there's another one, like, because, I mean, we don't need to waste everybody's time if there's one that is going to be the one, or if one doesn't do it and we get it out of here.
I
mean, it'd be
believe
more concise
Senator
to-
Koenig's is SJR49. I believe his is congressional districts as well. It must have a little bit different wording than Senator Coleman and mine, or else he would be presenting with us.
It would be safe to say, I'm not trying to get you to catch it, I'm just trying to like streamline things. So it would be safe to say if any of these came out, like they would suffice in enough changes.
I would support, based on what I know about Senator Koenig's bill, and I have to go back and reread it, I would support his language.
Okay,
as
so
well.
you guys will just let us know whatever you're going to allow to pass. Whenever,
Well,
at some point.
actually, that would be up to the chairwoman of the committee on
Yeah.
which one she takes up for executive committee and what she decides to do that. And
I hope so.
yeah, I'm no longer chairman of any committee. In fact, I got kicked off 2 committees and lost my parking spot.
Well,
but
you are
I'm
the
gonna-
most powerful non-chairman I've ever seen. 'Cause
Well,
you guys
I
complained
do
for 2 weeks
appreciate
and now you
that.
got a hearing.
I do appreciate that.
So-
Thank you.
I'd trade 5 chairmanships to be able to have that power. I'll tell you that. But I'll tell you, I do applaud you for, truthfully, as I joined, it was Senator Onder on the shapes and stuff of the marijuana
Yes.
edibles. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. We actually had some pretty tough conversations with some people from the industry on the side gallery last year, and I do not believe that they should be in the shape of gummy bears or anything that kids could mistake it for. And I shockingly teamed up with, I assume would be a Freedom Caucus member if he were still here,
Yes.
to work on that issue, because I don't, as I said on the floor, I like gummy bears, and I have them around my house, and I could see my daughters climbing onto the countertop to try to grab them when I wasn't looking.
Right, most certainly.
You know, I know maybe it doesn't pause that much, but it made me feel better to know that they were not in the shapes of all that other stuff.
Yes.
And I think, honestly, the converse of that is we don't have those Kit Kat type things here in Missouri, or the Doritos ones. You'll see those a lot in the unregulated states where
Right.
it's not like it's in the gray area.
Yes.
You know about gray areas.
Yes.
So that's part of the reason why it is beneficial to have the regulation, so that we don't have Dorito marijuana chips or whatever the heck they have in
Right,
all
because
those other states.
and Senator, you would agree that regular Doritos versus marijuana Doritos, the packaging looks very, very similar. Right?
I've seen them online. It's ridiculous.
Yes,
yeah,
it
I
is-
totally agree with you.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, and so I appreciate you helping lead that fight to
Yeah.
make it say THC infused or have a symbol on something there, and it just it pains me to think about kids just unknowingly
Yeah, I agree.
eating marijuana Doritos and candy.
Yeah,
because
we've run
they're
through
not
the same
old
thing
enough
with
for them.
alcohol, right?
That's right.
Cigarettes,
Yeah,
and all this
alcohol,
other stuff.
cigarettes,
So
yes.
it's not unusual for us to do special things for illicit substances that are legalized in the state. So
Right.
they shouldn't be sectioned out, in my opinion. But the other thing I did want to clarify just from earlier, and then I'll be done for right now, is the repeal on right to work was what was commonly referred to as a people's veto. None of this would touch that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just want to be clear, none of this would touch any of that type of stuff. But I think it's important to note that it's abundantly clear the Republican Party is worried about pro-choice women, and they're worried about labor. Right. I mean, that's what this comes down to. The first thing that we were talking about when we were talking about people that would be affected or bad things that have happened, we were told women have the right to choose over their bodies, and labor is getting out of control. So we need to get those two things in check. So
But
I
it-
just want that clear.
Well,
Thank
I-
you, Madam Chair.
I guess I would disagree a little bit. I mean, this isn't the first year that people have filed initiative petition reform bills, and I know there's other senators here that have some different ideas about how many signatures you need to gather or increasing a percentage. But I guess if this was the first year that there was any initiative petition reform bills filed, then maybe you'd have a point. I do worry about whether it's the pro-abortion initiative that was launched a week or two ago. I worry about anti-Second Amendment folks trying to get things on the ballot to take away our right to buy an AR-15 or to tax ammo to ungodly amount. So yes, there are things, and so that's why I do think that we need to make it a little bit harder to put something in the Missouri Constitution.
We will have to agree to disagree, but
Yes.
I respect where you guys are coming from. I disagree vehemently to it, and we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Any more questions?
I just have one quick question for either senator. So if this does go before the citizens of Missouri, what is the percentage needed for your SJR to pass?
It would be under the current constitutional limit of 50% plus one person.
Okay, so it would be less to pass it than to change the Constitution.
All right, yes.
You
Our,
can't
Okay,
make- you can't
thank you.
make a change
Right.
under an existing system with a new system, right? So we're going to use the system that we have in place.
Yes, you could. You could put it in your SJR. Thank you.
Any more questions from the committee?
Do you want us to,
Seeing none.
I'm going to move so we have room.
We are going to take witnesses, first witness for, against. So the first witness for supporting the bill, please come forward. And you have 3 minutes, and please fill out a witness form.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Susan Klein, representing Missouri Right to Life, here to go on record in support of SJR48 and SJR74. Missouri Right to Life is looking for ways, and I think Missouri citizens are too, based on polling I'll share with you, to protect the intent and integrity of our Constitution. We are looking, and we've carried this and supported this legislation for several years. So this is not new. It is something that we have supported for several years. In 2023, as we were looking at this, Missouri Right to Life really wanted to know where people in Missouri stood. So we brought in McLaughlin and Associates. It's a national polling firm. And came in to Missouri specifically to look at the issues of when our Constitution gets changed, and we didn't set the questions up to get the answers that we wanted. We wanted to know absolutely where the people of Missouri are. So there are we asked a whole lot of questions, but a couple of questions I'll just point out. Is we asked, do you believe the Constitution has been or is been changed too many times? And then would you support protecting the Constitutions in Constitution, and in what way? Resoundingly, whether you were looking at pro-life, pro-abortion, or independence. The answer to both of those questions was yes. And then the answer to the second question is, what would you support? Would you support keeping the concurrent majority, keeping the majority 50 plus 1, and then going to add a concurrent majority 50 plus 1 in 5 of the 8 congressional districts? We specifically asked that so that people would understand that we weren't trying to match how many congressional districts they have to have signatures in. We wanted them to know that we'll even go less. We just want more people to have a voice and a vote when our Constitution gets changed. We believe, since we all have to live by it, that we should all have a voice and a vote in it. And so that was our intent with the polling, and that is why Missouri Right to Life is supporting concurrent majority with keeping the percentage at 50 plus 1, and then going to a majority of 5 of the 8 congressional districts at 50 plus 1.
Okay. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We will next go to opposition. Make sure you fill out a witness form and state your name, please.
So it's Lisa Panette with Armorvine, and I'm very supportive of the things that Susan Klein has said. Unfortunately, we don't agree with what needs to be used. The congressional districts, we don't believe, are enough to actually fill the gap and fix the problem. So I went into initiative petitions and the debate when they came in into the archives at the Secretary of State's office, and there are pages and pages on those debates on why they brought them in and what they were to be used for. They were never to be used for millionaires and billionaires. I can tell you that. They were so the people would not take up arms again against one another after the Civil War. And this is not a way to fix it. So we need to look at the smaller districts, at the House districts, and that would be an actual fix.
Any questions for the witness? Senator Crawford?
Hi, thanks for being here. Just a quick question. I personally have issue with the House districts because they're not the same size. What do you have to say about that? The congressional districts are, with the exception of one person, that there's a wide variety of population in each of the House districts. They're not even close to the same size. So what would you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, none of them are anyway. I mean, when you're talking about St. Louis County, when you're talking about metro areas, that is the case. But if we're actually looking to solve a problem, this doesn't do it. So I guess the burning question is, are we looking to solve the problem? And if we are, we need to do it the right way, and that would be with House districts. So because like the Electoral College, you're going to have the majority of those districts.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the witness?
Just real quick.
Yes.
Is this in support or opposition?
Opposition of this bill.
So are
Of
we in
these two
support or
together.
opposition right now? I'm curious. Opposition. Okay. Just want to make. I didn't know if we were altering or changing back and forth. Okay. Okay. That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have a question, Senator? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Next in support?
In support of?
Yes, in support.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. Samuel Lee with Campaign Life Missouri to go on record in support of all 12 SJRs here. I've got written committee testimony, which I will not read, but everyone has, and Madam Chair, I'll send that as an electronic copy of the PDF for you to, anybody who wants a copy, they can get it from your office or one of the other members. Really what I want to discuss is that the concern about the tyranny of the majority is that there are certain things that can pass with a simple majority, but maybe it's not good for them to pass in the first place. And we have checks and balances in both our U.S. Constitution as well as in our Missouri Constitution so that this tyranny of the majority does not happen too frequently. I would point out that in our Constitution right now, it takes 2/3 of the congressional districts, signers in 2/3 of the congressional districts, not just a simple majority of the congressional districts, to sign initiative petitions. Right now, it takes 4/7, 57.1% of voters to approve indebtedness of local governments and school districts, and at certain other elections, it requires 2/3. 2/3 of the voters are in our Constitution are required to dissolve a county or to change the county seat. So our drafters of our Constitution, and I'm going back to even at least in one case, 1875, maybe even 1865 Constitution, have said there are certain things that should only pass with more than a majority of voters. So these concepts in all 12 of these are not foreign to our Constitution. I would also add that the courts have made a distinction between electing candidates for office versus ballot measures. There was a case, it's cited here, Brenner versus School District of Kansas City. It was in 1970, where there was a school ballot measure or a tax levy or both passed with majority, but did not pass with 2/3. And a 3-judge panel of federal district court judges said, and I'm going to quote from one of their paragraphs, an extraordinary majority requirement is therefore justified as an effective device to protect against an important and frequently highly controversial decision being made by a small minority of all persons eligible to vote. They discuss in that decision, for instance, you could have someone elected president or governor or any office by less than a majority, by a plurality of vote. If you have 3 candidates, obviously someone could get 34% and someone else could get 33% and someone else could get 33% and that person who got 34%. But that's not what we're talking about here. Candidates, we're talking about ballot measures. It's a yes or a no. I would also just point out that although testifying in favor of all these, because all of them have merit, it's not like you can combine all of them into one. And I know, Madam Chairwoman, you know this, but you can only amend one article of the Constitution. So you'd either go with Article 3, which I think is preferable, or go with Article 12. Particularly if you're going to include Senator Cierpiot's language, which is trying to really put one subject in the Constitution, you'd have to do Article 3 of the Constitution. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Senator Washington.
Hi, thank you for being here, Mr. Sam.
Yes, Senator.
So you aren't, the reason I walked out is because I thought I was hearing someone say that they were kind of opposed to amending the Constitution. We should make it harder. If that was the case, I wouldn't be here today. And neither would any of the women. We wouldn't be here if we made it too hard. So you are okay that we have some mechanism that we are allowed to change the Constitution?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I just think it should be more than just 50% plus one. I think it should probably be a majority of voters and a congressional majority. Senator, you're asking about marijuana and all that.
No, I didn't ask you that, so
Well,
we're not going to go there. But I am going to talk about this case, so I just want to
Sure.
update the case that is it's over 50 years old. So this case was filed by someone else, a new case, and had led to the city of Kansas City going through multi-billion-dollar lawsuits for desegregation as well as our tax levies, and has prevented our school district, for all practical purposes, from receiving state funds. So I just think it's okay. So the levy has we've gone back to try to get a levy, and we haven't been able to do levies in a long time. We're the only district in the state. So this was something that was not good for the citizens of Kansas City, and as the second largest county in the area, the entire state of Missouri. So when we bring these things up, they have this little thing called LexisNexis, and we call it shepherdizing.
Sure.
So you go look at the case and see what the new future of the case is. And since this is 50-some years old, 53 years old actually, then there's been a lot since then. And because of the restricting our levies, it has been detrimental to our school district. That when I was in high school, in the 80s, we had over 70,000 students, and today we have approximately 15. So I just think that it's very important that when we pull things, that we bring them forward. Thank you.
Senator, you're absolutely correct. If the lawmakers or the citizens wanted to reduce the levies from 4/7 to a simple majority, they could amend the Constitution to do that. But that would require an amendment to the Constitution.
Any more questions for the witness? Yes.
Hey, Sam, real quick. So if there were some ballot candy on this, would that mean you guys would oppose it? Like if, say,
No.
this was something to do with said immigrants or guns or something
Well,
like
I mean,
that? I mean, there was one I think I saw last year that said you couldn't accept lobbyist gifts when we're already at zero.
Right, and I that's a decision for this committee and the legislators in general. Do you want to put something on the ballot which will make it easier for voters to vote for it, or more likely, rather,
Sure,
I want to say. I mean, that's
Yeah, so by any means necessary.
right. Well, but by that means,
I mean, even if you're telling people that we don't want to accept lobbyist gifts when it's already at zero? Or something about, you have to be a U.S. citizen
if
to
you're
vote,
asking me, has this been done before? The obvious
sure it
answer
has,
is
doesn't make
yes.
it right.
By people on all sides of, clean.
Still wrong.
Clean Missouri reduced it down to $5, and Cleaner Missouri reduced it to
And when
zero.
I was in second grade, my teacher said 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Well, that's a policy decision. Is it?
I agree with you, Sam.
I would say with what Senator Cierpiot has, and I probably won't be here to testify in favor. I'm testifying in favor. I won't be around when he does it.
Sure.
Is that tries to maybe limit what the legislature and what the citizens could do in terms of what's a single subject. And I think it's something, if you're going to put something out, I'm just thinking you ought to consider it, okay?
Understand.
But it'd have to be Article 3 and not Article 12, because his is in Article 3, so,
Sure. Thank you, Sam.
thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, next will be opposition, and we are going to cut this down to 2 minutes, or we're not going to get finished. Thank you. You may begin, fill out a witness form.
Madam Chairman, I already did online. Is that acceptable? Thank you very much, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate, and running for statewide office or Congress. And this is unbelievable that we have to be here for a second year in a row fighting for our rights as Missouri citizens. First of all, the fiscal note is going to be $8 million plus. I believe in 50 plus 1 vote is a fair voting system. We the people, you as elected officials need to remember, we the people, and who sent you here to be elected officials. Stop dumbing us down and stop dumbing us as residents. You make a lot of Missourians feel stupid the last couple weeks in terms of you don't think that we're educated enough or that we can make our own decision for our own selves. You have forgotten us that we need to keep tabs and checks and balances on you as elected officials. The administration, the executive branch, the legislative branch, we as 6 million Missourians need to retain control and have the final stop gap of the checks and balances. Rural counties are small in population, 1,700 in Worth County to 6,000, 7,000, 12,000 population of some counties. Stop trying to control Missourians and driving Missourians away from voting and disenfranchising Missourians. I'm a conservative Republican. I believe in being a conservative, and I'm bucking my own party in this state. Stop trying to control us. Stop messing with political theater in our great state constitution. More citizen initiative and referendum is better with engaged citizenry. We are the boss, not elected officials. This is a National Republican Platform initiative. It has failed in 10 states.
Arnie,
over the
your
last,
time is up.
Oh, can I sum
Your
it up?
time is up,
Can I
yes.
sum it up? This has failed in 10 states over the last year, and it's awful, terrible, and damaging as a state constitutional amendment. I urge the committee to vote no and put this to bed for once and for all.
Okay, questions for the witness? Senator Crawford?
Hi, Arnie.
Hi.
Do you, I hear what you're saying. Do you have any concerns with the size that our Constitution is getting to be and some of the smaller things that are getting put into it? I'm seriously just asking the question. Or are you okay with that?
I really don't. I mean, we are our own state. We're the show me state. We should, what works for us should be, we shouldn't compare ourselves to other states and small constitutions or the federal government. I believe that people had a initiative, they had a reason and a referendum to bring before their neighbors and across the state. And people had bingo because the state legislature wouldn't do it. Sports betting, sports wagering. If the Senate and the House, the General Assembly don't pass it this year, all the owners of the major teams are going to get a referendum and put it on the ballot. That's the only mechanism for citizens of Missouri to get engaged. And to be honest, a normal citizen can't take on an initiative or a referendum. It costs a minimum of $5 million to even start to put together the amount of signatures that you need statewide. So it's not an easy task. You have to have a group of residents of at least 2,500 statewide, and you have to have a lot of money to put it together. So, thank you.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Arnie.
Thank you.
In support, you have 2 minutes. Fill out a witness form, please. Yes, support. Yes, in support. In support.
Here's the support.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. Ben Travelis with Missouri Farm Bureau here to go on record in support of a number of these initiative petition reform bills. We have long-standing member adopted policy on reforming the initiative petition process, and at our most recent annual meeting, they did call for preference to the concurrent majority ratification process, which is included in these two bills. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Yes, Senator Washington.
Hey, Senator.
Hi. I won't call you my pet name. That's just between me and you, Ben. So, when did Farm Bureau's policy begin to, when did you all start wanting to change the initiative petition process?
I would have to go back and look at that, Senator. I'm not entirely
Clearly
sure.
in 2014 you were okay with it though, right?
I apologize. Say what?
So Farm Bureau, for those who are listening, you mostly represent farmers, correct?
A lot of our membership, yes, is absolutely.
So you're
the
like
rural
an
interest
insurance
of the
company
state.
for farmers?
We have an insurance side of our company, yes, but the vast majority of our members do have that rural interest, especially farmers and ranchers.
Okay, and so the initiative petition process as it stands today provided our farmers in this state the right to farm, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And as I'm looking at those numbers, it was only 50.12%. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I know it was a close vote. That was before I came to Missouri Farm Bureau. Actually, I was 2014, so to be honest, Senator, I graduated high school in that year. So I wasn't really involved in that as much at that time, but I do know it was a close vote.
I only go back to 2008 is what I have. So while the process, the way it is, benefited a majority of your members, you all now feel that it is not a good process anymore.
A lot of our members are concerned about the ease of changing the Missouri Constitution, which is why they've been taking the stance they have on wanting to call for initiative petition reform to make it more difficult to change and amend the state's constitution.
So somebody that, like me, from the city, although the rest of my family is from Saline County, I think everybody in the building knows that. It seems like, you know, kind of like we as women and minorities, once somebody like you can get the apple, then you tear down the ladder so that the rest of us can't get to the ladder. That's kind of how it seems. Hopefully that's not, you know, what you really feel, but you all have benefited from the process the way it is, and now you want to take that away from the rest of our citizens. So thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, next witness in opposition. State your name, fill out a witness form.
My name is Fred Steinbach, and I represent Citizens Against Corruption, and I've been coming in this building for 40 years, and this is the most entertaining session, thanks to Senator Washington, that I've ever seen. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. Put my glasses on so I can read this to you. I'm Fred Steinbach. I was the first mayor of Chesterfield. I'm a proud Republican, and I served as the finance director for John Ashcroft. That may surprise some of you. I am a member of the Conservatives Against Corruption Coalition and the Respect Voters Coalition, and I oppose, if you don't mind not reading it, save time, all of them, all of the things you've suggested today, and any efforts to make it harder for the people of Missouri to exercise their constitutional freedom by use of the citizen initiative process. I think the members of this committee will appreciate a story that sheds on the true nature of this government reach. In 1992, my former boss, Governor John Ashcroft, vetoed similar attacks on the citizen initiative process. The then Democratic majority was attacking the will of the people and trying to make the initiative process more difficult because the Democrats were bitter that conservatives had used the initiative in many ways, including to pass the Hancock amendment with a 55% vote. In his veto statement, Ashcroft said the General Assembly should be reluctant to enact legislation which places any impediments on the initiative power which is consistent with the reservation found in the Constitution. I ask this legislature to listen to the advice of our former governor when considering further legislative action.
Your 2 minutes are up, sir.
May I have another 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Okay. Over 30 years, we still remember the heroism of our governor. Which of you, maybe you, Senator Koenig, maybe you, Mary Elizabeth, which of you will be the hero and will stand up and say, let's give the freedom back to the people? Thank you.
Are there questions for the witness? Yes, Senator.
Real quick, what do you think has changed with the Republican Party from when you were there and you believed in this process to where they're at now and trying to make it harder to do?
We went to the majority.
Yeah, so you just believe that it's just a better way for the majority to push out people that disagree with them.
No, I think that that's what this bill is about.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that it's a terrible idea. I think the wording is BS, if you're allowed to say that here.
Sure.
To try to mislead the people. And I am very much against this, taking the right of the people away to have their vote that they so well earned over many wars.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for coming down.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Seeing none. Next witness in support. You have 2 minutes. State your name and fill out a witness form. In support. Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Liz Henderson on behalf of the Missouri soybean. We want to go on record in support of just SJR 74 and 48, the ones before you, as we feel like the threshold should be a little higher to have more voices from the rural areas. I know some of the other bills had things that would dictate what could or could not go on the ballot, and that's not something we're in support of. So be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none.
No.
Nope. Sorry. Senator Washington.
Liz volunteers me to do work, so I want to ask her. In 2014, I'm sure soybean was in favor of the initiative petition that provided the right to farm.
Correct.
And now we're fighting the results of that because that also provided the opportunity to allow Chinese companies to buy into our farmland, correct?
That's not why we're in support of these bills, no.
Okay, why are you in support?
Our farmers that sit on our policy committee believe that in some of the recent initiative petitions that have been passed, they don't feel that their communities were as represented in those results, and they just want to make it so that it's required that the rural areas be accounted for in those.
So I'll say the same thing that you guys said to Ben. So at a 50.12% passage rate, it is clear that probably not 5 out of 8 would have approved that. It's 499,000 yes votes. I have more than that in my city. So you guys are okay with you being able to take advantage of it, but those behind you, you don't want them to be able to be afforded the same opportunities and rights.
Look, I'm just doing what my board told me to do today. I apologize.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Next witness in opposition. State your name, fill out a witness form, 2 minutes.
I've got my witness form and have filled that out. My name, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Franklin. I live in rural Missouri. I drove 180 miles this morning to get here. I'm retired, having served 35 years for Department of the Army, both active duty and as a civilian, and I am testifying on my own behalf, on my own time, and with my own money. But I do represent rural Missouri. I have acreage, and the requirement to have a constitutional amendment pass both by statewide majority and also a majority of whether it's congressional, state senate, state representative districts, will very likely create a rule by minority, undermining the will of all Missourians. Measures currently must pass by a statewide majority without regard to acreage or zip code, which fairly reflects the will of all Missourians. One person, one vote. My acreage gives my vote no more weight than my niece who pays rent for a downtown Kansas City apartment with no land. So now we all know that. That's really been the only thing we talked about here for the most part, except some of the history. But it does seem that there is a struggle to find these extra likable elements that are tagged on to these bills, and there are several of them. But this is the group, you all are the experts, the Senate gets the opportunity to vet those ideas. I want to dive into one of them as long as my time allows me to, and it's the citizenship. I've been trying for 10 months and working with my senator from the 12th district, my representative from the 8th, and the senator's staff to actually understand, fully understand what the citizenship language is meant to do. So in a quick summary of some of the back and forth, the question was, are voters required currently to be, number one, a U.S. citizen, two, a resident of Missouri? Answer, we all agreed yes. Number two, can a non-citizen currently vote in any election held in Missouri, federal down to local school board? Answer, no. Currently, can local authorities, city or county, change their election rules currently to allow non-citizens to vote in local, city, or county elections? My senator says no. And this is not criticism. It's confusion on my part, and I just want to understand. These people have been helpful and answered, but I'm bringing this up because I think it's important. My senator says no. My senator's staff member said yes, that the local authorities could change. My state representative wasn't sure. After a May meeting, after session, he was going to get back to me. I'm hoping to visit him today because after multiple attempts, we've not connected. So it is an open action. Given the above, I conclude the following. No non-citizen can currently vote, and no local authority can be less restrictive to allow non-citizens to vote at the local level. Therefore, no non-citizens can vote at any level on any ballot measure.
You need to finish it up.
So I
time's
don't
up.
know what this is doing, but I am here to bring this up, that there is confusion, and elected leaders, I would hope, would know who can and cannot vote. Perhaps one of the sponsors in a future piece that's going to be presented today will dive into that and help clarify for me.
Any questions
Thank
for
you.
the witness? Seeing none, thank you.
Here's my testimony for all.
Next witness in support. In support. Seeing none. Okay, here we go. In support. Okay. Next witness in opposition.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, this will suffice for all of the bills. Sam Licklider, Missouri Realtors. We are opposed to any change in the initiative process, period.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
One more time. Anybody that just come in recently in support? Okay, right here. Thank you. Fill out a witness form, state your name, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Jacob Murley with American Action Fund, here to support a number of these bills. Simply put, it's far too easy to change the Missouri State Constitution, and frankly, I don't believe that many of these bills go far enough. I believe a better measure would be House districts, majority of those, if not 2/3 majority of those, and with that, I'd say please support.
Any questions for the witness? Yes.
Briefly, what is American Action Fund?
We're a 501c4.
Are you funded by people from out of state?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, Madam Chair.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. In opposition? She's going to go first. That,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nancy Copenhaver from Moberly, representing the League of Women Voters of Missouri. I am the Vice President and the Legislative Director of that organization. The League of Women Voters believes that responsible government should be responsive to the will of the people. And the citizen initiative petition, whether it be using for a constitutional amendment or for a statutory change, is the most direct form of voter participation in our democracy and is really only used when the citizens feel their voice isn't being heard. And I'm just going to summarize with the fact that the League of Women Voters of Missouri opposes any attempt to make it more difficult to get a measure on the ballot or to raise the threshold for approval. So therefore, we're opposed to both of these bills.
any questions? Yes, Senator Carter.
Are we a direct democracy or a representative republic?
We are a representative republic, and we do have democracy as well. I think that's important that we keep that.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Next, in opposition, we're going to go to 1 minute and state your name and fill out a witness form.
I have a witness form right here.
Okay.
My name is Wayne Lee. I'm a civil rights and disability advocate. The reason I'm here is because I would like answers to the questions that were asked the young lady that was here just a little while ago when she asked questions of the committee.
And
she was
what,
here. She asked questions regarding the questions that she asked of you.
and who was that?
She's right here. She never got answers to the questions she asked. And if you are a committee of legislators and a person asks you questions, it's only natural that you would get answers. It's your responsibility.
Well, you may be correct, but I was not under the impression that you were wanting to receive answers from us right here now.
I would love for one of the bill sponsors to explain the citizenship piece and what the proposal was.
Senator Koenig.
So, I mean, typically in this format, you can't really ask questions. You're testifying. I would be happy to answer your question. I will when I present my bill.
And I appreciate that. Sir, I was saying if one of the future sponsors of the bills with that same criteria could explain if that would help clear up my confusion that I pretend.
All right, in that case, then what I had.
Yeah, I plan on addressing that in my presentation.
In that case, then I have nothing to offer.
Well, thank you. I mean, I was
Okay.
under the impression
Would you like this to be-
we asked the questions. Yes.
I'm gonna fill
Okay.
this out anyway.
Thank you.
Fine.
Okay. Anybody else opposed to the bill? Fill out a witness form and just go stand over there. Okay. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Jeremy LaFavor. I'm appearing today on behalf of Empower Missouri and the Missouri Budget Project. I'm submitting one form at your request. Both organizations are opposed to each piece of legislation. I think largely the issue is ensuring that citizens have the ability and the power to address and change the government when their government or when the people find their government is non-responsive. We saw that in the 80s, and we've seen it here lately, and we believe that it's an important tool for the people to have. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Next witness in opposition.
Hi. Daniel Romine, Conservatives Against Corruption, and I think everybody's hammered in that the will of the people, it should be the rule. We want that to stay our motto, so I won't go into that again. There were two things. You had asked me last year about whether or not we should have direct democracy, and then you kind of asked that in our federal government. There's two systems. You compare the European Union. It's a long thing to go into a long philosophy about that. Or the African Union. One of those has direct democracy, the other one doesn't. Which one's more successful? If you think of us more provincial, China or Canada, they're both republics. One has direct democracy, the other one wasn't. Which one do we want to be more like, where we're restricting citizens or we're not? And you talk about the money. If we're going against the overturning Missouri, Clean Missouri, that took almost no money. And what it was people getting together. And if you're going to make it harder, what you're really wanting is for it to be something that only political entities with more money can pass things, taking away that.
Your time is up.
All right,
Any
thank you.
questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next in opposition.
My name's John Stambaugh. I am a resident of Cole County, and I'm in opposition to any changes to the current IP process, and I would like to give the balance of my time to this gentleman right here.
You already testified.
It's up to you. What do you want to do?
No, we can't do that. No, we're not going, or we're not going to do that.
Is that against the rule?
Yeah, well, we've got so many people in here, okay? You've already
You
testified.
just have to make a way for people to testify. I wish the Senate would do what the House does and allow electronic testimony.
Okay, next in opposition.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, autophagy on behalf of Missouri NEA. We're going on record in opposition to all the joint resolutions that change the threshold. That wouldn't include 56 because it doesn't address that topic. A couple thoughts. There's lots of passionate, engaged people on both sides of the issue here today. We would focus on a couple things. First, I would respond to Senator Carter just to remember the Constitution of the state of Missouri. We're on our fourth Constitution, each of which, over the 202-year period, is the result of direct democracy ratified by a simple majority vote. So while the functioning operation of government isn't a direct democracy, the Constitution itself is and has always been for 202 years a product of direct democracy and a simple majority approval. I want to repeat a conversation I had with Senator Crawford last week that we think might be helpful. Because we oppose the changes to the Constitution initiative petition changing process, I think what we would want to highlight is we think that you're trying to address a symptom and not the actual problem. The actual problem is there's differences of opinion between the elected legislator on the topics they want to cover and the citizenry on certain issues. And there's not confidence that the statutory IP process, which is probably what should be used for many of these documents that have administrative process, there's not confidence that if they go to the trouble, and I can tell you it's trouble to amend the Constitution if you have to do the IP process. I've done both, and it's a lot easier to draft a joint resolution for a senator than to do an IP. But there's not confidence that it won't immediately be overturned after you've taken your passion, your time, and your resources to put that in place. So if you take a change to the Constitution that says the General Assembly can't change a statutory IP without taking it back to a vote of the public, you might put in the minds of the citizenry that the statutory IP process has some viability. So we would submit that for your all's consideration. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next
Thank you,
in
Madam Chair.
opposition.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Jeanette Mott Oxford here for Paraquad. You might say, why does a group that cares about disability rights come and testify on this topic? It's because we've watched over and over how when we come to the General Assembly with pain and suffering and a need for something to change, that sometimes we can't get something done without putting it on a petition. We come each year and let you know that people with disabilities cannot find affordable, safe, accessible, healthy housing, and we cannot find transportation that we need. And someday we may have to put that on a petition and bring it before our fellow Missourians to vote on. And if we should do that, we would want majority to rule on it instead of, it's really hard to get something on the ballot and then to have to win it by parsing it a bunch of different ways is just too much to ask. We also are concerned that we should be thinking of ourselves as one Missouri instead of thinking that, oh, people in this district aren't as valuable as people in this other district. We're one community, and we want people with disabilities to be considered equally valued in any community. And so dividing things up by district really worries us.
Thank
I would
you,
welcome any
Jeanette.
questions you have.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next witness in opposition.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name's Denise Lieberman. I'm the Director and General Counsel of the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, which is Missouri's nonpartisan state voting rights table. We work to advance free, fair, and accessible elections for all Missourians. We stand opposed to all 12 of the SJRs that are before the committee today because we believe that the voices of all Missourians deserve to be heard. Our state constitution for more than a century has protected the rights of all Missourians to make their voices heard through the democratic process, through direct democracy, through the initiative petition process. And in a concept that all of us learned as kindergartners, majority rules. The measures before you today, among other things, eliminate majority rule from the threshold for passage, meaning that a minority of Missouri's voters will be able to have the final say on policy matters before them. And we believe that if we are here to protect the integrity of our elections, as some of the other witnesses have asked about, then we need to ensure voters that when they go to the polls and the majority of them vote on a measure, that their will be effectuated. Please leave the citizen initiative process alone.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Next in opposition.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Smith, representing the ACLU. We work in the courts, legislature, and communities to defend and preserve the civil rights of all Missourians, specifically the right to vote. For over a century, Missourians from across the political spectrum have employed the IP process to advance key causes that are important. Earlier, the Hancock Amendment was referenced. That's been one of the most consequential things to come out of Missouri government over the last half century, having refunded $1 billion during the 1990s. And so people have used this again across the spectrum. I want to address very briefly the two different aspects of it. Concurrent majorities essentially means that even if a proposed amendment were supported by a huge margin of voters, it may not pass. And we think this is in direct conflict with our, democratic system to express the will of the majority. Finally, I just want to briefly address Senator Hoskins' invocation of the chocolate bars with the marijuana inside of them and how deceptive that can be. I don't think there's a more apt metaphor for the ballot, so-called ballot candy here in this SJR, because it would establish an totally unnecessary definition of legal voters. Such requirements are already in place in Missouri. The Constitution states that all Missouri citizens and only Missouri citizens have the right to vote, and the inclusion of these redundant provisions in the resolution's title will only serve to confuse voters as to the true substance and purpose of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
Jeff, can you speak to a bit of the ACLU stuff when it comes to the one person, one vote, and how this could, on its face maybe be unconstitutional, or just to that in general?
Yeah, others could probably speak to it better than I could, but you could very easily have something that passes with a 2/3 majority in the state, but fails to win in 5 of the congressional districts. We've seen in American politics an increasing polarization that's largely rooted in culture and geography, and we are, the ACLU would be very concerned that something which could pass with 2/3, even 70% of the state, but loses in rural Missouri would then be, could then, that is so directly, so sharply juxtaposed against our traditions in this country of, one person, one vote, that, yes, we think it is very constitutionally problematic.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition?
Madam
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Ron Berry. I'm a registered lobbyist. I'm here on behalf of Jobs with Justice Voter Action. We want to go on the record in opposition to all of the different joint resolutions you're going to hear today. We could go into many different reasons why we oppose, and I'd be happy to have any conversations offline to go through that.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Opposition? State your name, fill out a witness form, 1 minute.
1 minute. Dan Vietz, attorney, Columbia, Missouri. On behalf of the Mid-Missouri Civil Liberties Association, I was one of the leaders of both the successful campaigns that amended our Constitution and expanded it greatly, enacting Article 14, Sections 1 and 2. The people of the state deserve to continue to have the right to rule by majority. It's an important part of our direct democracy. When the Democrats were in control down here, the Republicans used the initiative process to their advantage. Whichever party is not in control will try to use that. It's an important part of the checks and balances of our entire system. I believe the majority will regret it if they take away or hinder this. It's not reform, it's sabotage.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Opposition? Opposition? State your name, 1 minute, and fill out a witness form. You may begin.
Dawn Nicholas, contract lobbyist for Missouri Coalition for the Environment, Sierra Club, and Missouri Parks Association. We'd like to go on record in opposition of all of the bills.
Any questions for the witness?
Written testimony has been submitted.
Seeing none. Opposition? Support? That concludes the, informational purposes only. Almost forgot that. Okay, thank you. Okay, and now we're going to hear SJR49, Senator Koenig, and SJR79, Senator Brown. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, members of the committee. Senator Andrew Koenig from the 15th District. I'm here to present SJR49. This is actually fairly similar to Senator Coleman's and Senator Hoskins. It does use the concurrent majority based on congressional districts. I'll point out a couple of things that may be different, or I'll speak first to the citizen voting that was brought up earlier. So there's no provision in the Constitution that says only citizens. It is true that based on the effectuation of law and everything, that currently in Missouri only citizens can vote. But what we've seen across the country is we have seen jurisdictions for non-federal elections have non-citizens voting. And I do think the people of Missouri would like to have that provision in the Constitution. Other differences on page 2, it does allow, this was a provision that came out of last year's bill that I believe this body had voted on, or at least came out of the conference committee report, and it came from the Speaker of the House, dealing with review and commenting. Another provision that we have in there is what the idea is to push some of these IPs more towards the statutory instead of the constitutional change. And so what we did is we raised the threshold in here to 4/7 to undo the will of the people. So basically we made it harder for the legislature to change an IP done statutorily. And so that way to give more confidence that if a statutory IP was done, that it would be in place and not changed by the legislature. So those are some of the more substantial changes, but like I said, it's very similar to both Coleman's and Hoskins.
Okay, thank you. Senator Brown, you may begin.
Thank you. For the record, I am Senator Ben Brown from the 26th District. SJR79, similar to Senator Koenig's bill, if approved by the voters, would reform the initiative petition process in our state. We want to maintain access to the ballot for citizens while also ensuring that the initiative petition process is truly being utilized to advance the interests of Missourians and not that of well-funded out-of-state special interest groups. In order to prevent this, we must ensure that amendments to our Constitution are representative of Missouri values and not simply being purchased by groups funneling money into a couple large population centers. Instead of requiring a simple statewide majority, it would require a majority of voters in a majority of congressional districts, ensuring that the interests of Missourians throughout the state are represented in this process. This would put the process more in line with the Republican system of government that our country was founded upon and actually guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution, as well as with what is required at the federal level. Though under this resolution, the threshold would remain 50%, much lower than the 75% of states required to amend the U.S. Constitution. Thank you, and be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions? Yes, Senator.
Real quick, I'd ask you the same question that I asked earlier. Is this the Freedom Caucus position, this bill, or is it any of the other ones?
No, I don't think there's a specific piece of legislation that the Freedom Caucus is necessarily supporting. I think there's a number of provisions that could be different from each other. I mean, some of us filed different versions of it. So.
Okay, and is the speaker signed off on any of these? Like, is there a speaker, like...
No, I mean...
That was the part of the problem we had last year, right?
Sure.
The speaker disagreed with where you guys were at. You disagreed.
And I mean,
with
ultimately, in the conference committee report, we did have an agreement between the House and Senate on a version of it.
Okay, so, I mean, wouldn't it be simpler to just bring that one forward?
I mean, there's a chance we could end up back there.
Well, I just don't understand why we're going to have to listen to 12 bills, 6 rolled together. If there's a solidified position, let's put it together so we can fight back and forth on it, and then we could make a decision one way or the other. But I mean, I certainly. Okay, thank you, Senator.
Any other questions? Yes, Senator Washington.
Hi. Look at you with those glasses.
I know. I guess I'm getting old. I don't know.
Real
Yes,
quick,
you
stated that there was nothing in our Constitution that stated a voter had to be a citizen.
No, so like what it says all citizens have the ability to vote, but it doesn't say only citizens. So obviously in the state of Missouri, currently, based on statute and everything, you have to be a citizen in order to vote. But there is always that threat out there of, what other states are doing.
But isn't citizen actually defined as a person who is a recognized, either born in the United States of America or certified as a citizen through naturalization?
Yeah, so but if you were, so saying that all citizens have the right to vote, meaning you can't exclude a citizen from voting. The
Correct.
The reverse
Except for ours does have some exclusions, like those who are still felons that are under paper and haven't fulfilled all their requirements or whatever. So I'm trying to get why we would need to say all citizens when only citizens can vote anyway. And then we do have a second prong, which says you must be a resident of the state of Missouri. So I think Senator Rizzo had asked before about ballot candy, and to me this is ballot candy because it makes folks think that we have non-citizens and non-residents voting when our Secretary of State has said, until he decided to run for governor, he said multiple times, multiple times, that this was 2020 was the safest election we ever had. So I'm not understanding why we need to put in something that's already the law.
Well, I mean, it creates ad protection. Like I said,
what protection does it create?
All right, saying that all citizens have that right to vote doesn't mean that you can't give that right to someone who doesn't have it today. So saying only would be a qualifying restricting, where one is kind of unlimited. All right, you have to give
in this
that right.
instance, Senator, I'm going to have to agree to disagree because all and only are the same.
They are not. They're not. They're completely different.
Okay, I have the thing. What do they call that? A JD, and an ESQ. So I've been looking at this for a long time. I've been one of those for a long time, and I will tell you that unless you can provide me a definition in our Constitution or a case or a statute that says all citizens and only citizens are something different. This is ballot candy to rile up folks, to make them think that they are voting for something that is going on in our state that is not going on in our state. Now, there are some states where they did find some illegal voting, but they were citizens. I think in North Carolina, they found some. And I think in Pennsylvania, they recently found some for, what's that guy's name? Joseph Biden. And I think they found some in North Carolina that were illegal because there were some folks going to old folks and illegally voting for them. And but they didn't wear they didn't have the same letter behind their name that I do. But I understand where you want to go with IP reform. I just don't think we need to be putting things in there that are already the law to confuse our citizens and to also rile them up. Thank you.
If I could just respond to that real quick. I don't think it's about confusing anyone. I think it's about interpretation. The interpretation of the Constitution up to this point, only U.S. citizens have been permitted to vote, but that not necessarily will be the case moving forward. So I think it's about just providing clarity in the law moving forward to ensure that that remains the way that this is enacted.
Can I respond?
Yes, Senator.
Between myself, Senator Rizzo, and Senator Razor, we have the most diverse districts in the entire United States of America. I have a high school with 83 languages. He has a high school with 85. I will tell you that that it does mean confusion, because most of my foreign people are waiting for their naturalization to vote. Now, my Hispanics, they know they're not getting ready to vote, a lot of them, because they know that they didn't come here that way. But we have all the refugees in our districts. And so to say that it's clarification is wrong. It does make them think that they will never be able to vote because they thought they got the right to vote when they became naturalized citizens, because they are one of all citizens. And the reason we also say all citizens is so that we know that we are only talking about those people who were either born in this country or have been naturalized by our federal government to be citizens. So I respectfully disagree with you. This is something to confuse folks. We don't have any issue with non-citizens voting. Now, whether we like the way they look, whether we like their zip code, where they live, or whatever the case may be, we don't have that issue in our state. And our Secretary of State has been on record multiple times saying that.
I respect your opinion. I think that we were both clear on what the intent of that aspect was. I think that.
And are you paid to interpret the Constitution?
If somebody is going to cause confusion, I think it would more likely be the opponents of this bill, by instilling fear in people and using that to get them to not support it.
How would you be instilling fear when you're saying you're already a citizen so you can already vote?
Well, where is this confusion going to come from? If you said it's clear, not clear that if people become a citizen, that they would then be able to vote. I just don't understand where that confusion, the source of that would
be. The confusion comes in you putting this in a constitutional amendment to make people think that non-citizens are voting, period. And they're not. So people who come here that come here as non-citizens, like my, 25, 30, 50,000 Somali refugees that are in our community, they would read something like that and feel like, oh, well, am I really a citizen? Because they don't speak our language. They have lived in a camp for 4 to 5 years before they get here. So they haven't voted, they haven't worked, they don't have the things that you and I have that we're used to. So they don't know how America necessarily works. So if they see something like that, that would confuse them. But my grandmother's people down there in Saline County, they know they citizens and they know what they fought for to vote, because the people in Saline County that are in my family, they do remember that, hey, I'm a little old black lady and I can't vote. So they remember what it was like to not vote, and that does cause confusion for folks. So I don't want to, I love you to death, and I just talk rough. But I think to say that all and only is something different, the way we interpret that in the courts is you got to give me some proof. And I'll be more than willing to accept that from either of your offices offline.
All right. So, for instance, so you want to know, if we were saying all dogs could come into this room, right? That could have a different meaning, because that doesn't exclude necessarily from cats coming into this room.
Yes, right? It does, because it says all dogs. It doesn't say.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that cats can't. It's just saying that all dogs can. If you say only, then that word excludes, and saying that only citizens. So I do believe there's a difference between all and only.
I do, but not in this case, because you don't have anything outside of being a citizen that gives you the right to vote, unless you're a felon, which we say in our Constitution. We already have that in there. We say that you can't vote over here, and if you live in Kansas, because we say that in Missouri you must be a U.S. citizen and a state resident for a period of time before we allow you to vote in our elections. So yes, you can say all dogs are allowed. And let me just give you a little one of them, what you call that thing? Them little trinkets that you learn in law school. When I said all dogs, that meant no other animals. Because if I wanted the other animals, I would have said it. Okay? Thank you.
Senator, I think that one thing we are on the same page on is that we do need to be clear about who does and does not have the ability to vote to avoid any kind of confusion. That's the intent of this aspect of the SJR, and if it were to pass, I'd be the first person. I'd be happy to work with you to try to work in the messaging to ensure that to avoid confusion, ensure
Now,
that
I've
people
already got
can
a
vote.
text because I'm talking too much, so I just want to end it here. But we already have that in our Constitution. And again, if you guys can bring me something that would show that we need to say only, you can bring me another state. Heck, you can bring me another country that says only so-and-so is allowed to vote. I'll give you some clues. The Middle East, where they say only men. Oh my God, let's go to our original Constitution. You know what that is? Where it said only. See, there's a difference here, so you can check that out. Only land-owning men, white men, were allowed to vote. And then when they realized that wasn't a good thing, and they let women vote, and they let African Americans and other people vote, they changed it to all citizens. But first, you had to become a citizen. So like my great-grandfather was not considered a citizen, although he was born here. And I know that seems like I didn't go back enough generations, but trust me, I did. My grandfather is the first free person born in my family in 1882. My great-grandfather was born in 1853, which would make him a slave at that time. He wasn't considered a citizen because African Americans were not citizens. They were just 3/5 of property to count for the slave owner as we went through the census so that the slave owners in those states could have more votes. Since he wasn't a citizen, we didn't have to say only citizens because we already knew that the only citizens were white folks. We can say all citizens because nobody else was considered a citizen. It's the same today. If you come over here and you ain't supposed to be here and you didn't do your paperwork and we have not yet sent you through that long test that probably nobody in here can answer, including myself, you are a visitor, whether that be legal or illegal. And you are not allowed to vote yet because you are not a citizen. If I go to Ghana right now, I cannot vote in Ghana because I have to be a citizen. They don't have to say only citizens. They say all citizens in Ghana. And the reason we have that language all is because when we first became a state, we were exclusionary. We did say no women. We did say no black people. My own family is witness to that. So that is why all is the appropriate language, and in this instance also means only citizens vote. But I think we should get off of this and when we can all meet in somebody's office.
Any other questions for the bill handler? Seeing none. Okay. First witness in support. Next will be opposition. One minute.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. My name is Arnie C., Acdnos, State Public Advocate. I submitted my testimony online. These two bills are confusing. Some of them I agree with. A lot of them are just up in the air. They're confusing or baiting the issue, and it'll be overturned by a circuit judge in Cole County or St. Charles County. I've been around many court cases where language is being contested by somebody of standing. I would be one citizen of standing, and I would challenge it in St. Charles County Circuit Court. Do not bait, do not taunt, and cause strife in the ballot of a ballot language. You know, again, we need to stop messing with citizens. It's becoming that the General Assembly is clearly about access, power, control, greed, and money, not necessarily in one order, and we need to change this mentality. Defeat this bill and leave the power to we the people. I will always work hard to defeat any power grabs and any controls by the Senate or the House.
Thank you,
Madam
Arnie.
Chairwoman.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next witness in support? Seeing none. Opposition?
I'll hop right up here. I'm Elizabeth Franklin. Thank you again. And I guess I should have asked Senator Washington 10 months ago to clarify, because that is the clearest answer I've gotten on the citizenship part of all of these petition bills in 10 months. It was stated by the senator, all across the country has seen local election regulations to allow non-citizens to vote. However, what's not said is, can that currently happen in Missouri? That has been my question all along. Do local officials have that authority to allow non-citizens to vote? My own senator was the one who gave the clearest answer, and he said no. They cannot be less restrictive than the Missouri Constitution. So I think we need to get off of that fear of threat, which I heard, and instilling fear. That's not the right words. If you want to change the way the majority structure and moving the goalpost is, come right out, say it, stand by it, and these extras that are meant to confuse. As a white woman living in the country, I am not an immigrant. My family's been here since the Revolutionary War, and I was confused, and I am college educated.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any
Open to
questions? Seeing none. Opposition?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Jeff Smith again representing the ACLU. I'll try to be brief and not redundant. Just wanted to see if I could shed a little bit more light on another little piece of candy in this. The section of the SJR saying that foreign contributions are prohibited to IP campaigns. Trust me when I tell you that I am more familiar with federal campaign finance law than I ever wanted to be. And I want to just read from section, from 52 U.S.C. section 30121 of our federal code. A foreign national, directly or indirectly, is prohibited from making a contribution or donation of money or other thing of value, or to make an express or implied promise to make a contribution or donation in connection with a federal, state, or local election. Also prohibited to make a contribution or donation to a committee or of a political party, or an expenditure, independent expenditure, or disbursement for an electioneering communication. So
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Any questions? Yes, Senator Coleman.
That was statutory federal code that you were reading?
Yes.
And that's changeable by a simple majority vote at the federal level?
It is.
So that, thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Seeing none.
Thank you.
I'm just going to check any in for the bill. Opposition. Opposition. One minute, Jeanette.
It's okay. Jeanette Mott Oxford for Paraquad, going on record in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Opposition?
Good afternoon, Denise Lieberman, Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. We stand in opposition in particular to the provisions that would impose the needless citizenship requirements and other ballot candy prohibitions on foreign interference in foreign funding. These things are already the case in Missouri. We spent a lot of time today talking about candy, and that's exactly what these measures are. They are designed to make voters think that maybe maybe it's not the case already that only citizens and residents of Missouri can register to vote. Or maybe it's not the case that we can't have foreign interference in our elections. Those things are already the case, but the fact that they are placed at the top of the ballot summary language in most of these bills tells you everything you need to know, that is intended to hide the true purpose of these measures, which is to upset majority rule and one person, one vote in Missouri.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, Senator Washington.
Lieberman, thank you for coming down. You said that they're at the top of most of these bills for the language. And I know you deal a lot with voter rights and voter bills throughout the country. Why do you think that is at the top? Is immigration a big deal for a lot of voters right now?
I would think so, Senator Washington. I mean, I can't speak to the intent of the bill sponsors, but certainly when you see provisions that don't have a massive actual impact on changing the law placed at the top of the summary statement, it's already the case that only citizens can vote. It's already the case that foreigners cannot bring ballot measures in Missouri. And placing the more impactful provisions at the bottom, it's suggestive that it is intended to evoke particular fears in the voters that may not be in fact true.
Much like the fear, like in 2020 before the election, that there were caravans of rapists, murderers, and whatever else the case may be that were crossing the border, and we're still waiting for the caravans.
Precisely. There's a lot of disinformation out there that is itself creating a deterrent to people participating in our democratic process. And really, that should end right here.
Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none. Opposition.
Nancy Copenhaver from Moberly, speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters. We're opposed to a couple of things in this, but also like to commend a couple of things in here. The League would agree with giving voters the opportunity to review and comment on IP proposed constitutional amendments, and the League would also agree with the idea of restricting the General Assembly from changing a properly passed IP statutory measure for 3 years. And it's a positive move that might encourage citizens to use the statutory IP rather than the constitutional amendment, which we would be in favor of. But League does not agree with prohibiting a particular list of topics that could use the IP or restricting communication or electioneering regarding an IP proposed constitutional amendment, which we all, I think, would agree is a violation of free speech.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Opposition. Opposition. Informational purposes only. Seeing none. Okay, we're going to move on to SJR 51, Senator Eigel, and SJR 77, Senator Carter. Senator Carter.
This is a Senate joint. I'm Senator Carter, representing District 32. This is a Senate Joint Resolution number 77 in regards to what can and can't be used for constitutional amendments. Raising sales tax on food, local taxes obviously is most of the concern here. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for the bill handler? Senator Washington.
Yes, hi, Senator. Real quick, once we put something into the Constitution, it lasts for a lifetime, pretty much. So how, if the need came in the future, with inflation and things, how would we be able to raise the sales taxes on the food?
Well, a lot of these are local sales tax issues anyway. I would imagine that you wouldn't want
Sales taxes are also how we earn. We get money mostly two ways for our general, and that is sales taxes and income taxes.
And do you believe that a majority of people would like to be dominated by out of their area tax levies?
It's not my bill, so I need you to answer my question.
No, I don't agree with you. I think it needs to be a local issue. So
I didn't ask your opinion. I asked you, how would we raise taxes if the need came?
It would have to be a local issue.
Okay, so second is, I see in your bill it says the General Assembly is given exclusive authority to enact laws enforcing provisions in the Constitution. Does that mean that we are taking the court's interpretation away?
I don't believe so, Senator.
Well, what does exclusive authority mean?
I'll have to look at it again.
It's your bill,
It is.
and you don't know what that means?
Exclusive authority to, what section are you referring to?
I don't know what section, but it's in, because I'm looking at the summary. But you have language that says that the General Assembly is giving the exclusive authority to enact laws enforcing the provisions in the Constitution. As an attorney, I read that as the court is not needed and that nothing can go before the court to make those decisions, which is clearly not only against the state constitution, but definitely against what the founders did of the United States of America, because we have three different entities. And I see Senator Eigel wants to answer it for you. He's given that I got the answer face.
No, I never have that face.
It says, additionally, the General Assembly is given exclusive authority to enact laws enforcing provisions in the Constitution related to ballot measures.
So what does that mean?
I would assume, Senator, that the General Assembly is given that exclusive authority to enact the laws in regard to the ballot measures.
So our courts would not have a say, which would violate, I can't even talk about how many laws it violate, including the Constitution itself.
I think they would still be able to weigh in on those.
Do you understand
laws.
that exclusive means exclusive?
And
that
it
they
says-
are, let me give you an example. In workers' compensation, if I hurt myself at work, the exclusive place where I can get recovery from my employer is through the workers' compensation court. That means I cannot go sue my employer in circuit court. I cannot sue him in criminal court. I must exclusively bring my claim in the workers' compensation court under the Division of Labor and Industrial Relations. So exclusive means that's the only people that get to do it.
Senator, I don't believe that the courts have the authority to enact laws.
I'm gonna stop. Yeah, because I'm gonna stop because that's.
Committee members, before we ask any more questions, I believe we'll just go ahead and hear Senator Eigel's bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And by the way, I've got two. Are we talking about 51 or 83? I think we're talking about 51.
51.
Okay. Madam Chairman, I had filed 83 after 51, so if we want to accelerate it, we had actually, I kind of consider 83 kind of a better draft. So if I could just focus on that one, that might save a little time for the committee. We can, but I think that I'm focusing more on 83 right now. All right. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. State Senator Bill Eigel. Happy to present SJR83 for the committee's hearing, or for the committee's consideration. I want to be real simple. Oh.
I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just don't understand. It's not in this pairing at all. Are we hearing Senate Bill 83?
It's on the.
Yeah.
It's on the official notice, but not on the list that I got that told me who my partner was for presenting the bills.
So are you wanting to
Oh.
remove 51?
Yeah, I could just stay for, instead of putting the committee through two, why don't I just wait until we get to 83?
And then whoever's paired with.
No, 83 isn't on the list of this one, which is why I was asking. I'm not trying to. I just am confused.
It's the next one.
No, it's the next one. 83 is, yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Excuse
okay.
me. Did not see that.
It's
Senator
okay.
Carter, I'm sorry.
The wheels of government do turn.
We forgive you, Senator.
Thanks, guys, for your patience. Sorry, Senator, for interrupting you.
It's a great day, Senator. It's a great day. All right.
you want to do two, whoever the next partner is as well.
Yeah, I think Senator Moon is the partner for 83 if he wants to come on up here. All right. All right.
Go ahead,
Come on,
Senator
Senator.
Moon.
It's going to be great. Come on down.
Exactly, 53%.
Senator Carter, why don't you go back and sit down for questioning from committee members? Senator Moon?
There's a third
Go
chair.
down there.
Yeah, there's their chair. Easy stuff.
That's, yeah. Oh, boy, you're serious.
Brought lunch.
Oh, good.
Mike, there's another chair over here if you like.
I like to be over.
Okay.
You need a microphone.
Subservient. Is there a microphone? I guess I'll go over there. Well, is it going to work?
Why don't-
Yeah, it'll work good over here.
Thanks anyway.
It'll be okay.
Carter, Senator Carter, did you finish your bill?
I did, thank you.
Okay. 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 Any questions from the committee? Senator?
I have questions, depending on what we're on. But my question is pretty generic. I've asked them all the same. It'll be fine. I'm gonna guess we're kind of lumping these together here, which is fine. I'm fine with that to expedite the process. Are any of the bills you guys are presenting like the official Freedom Caucus position of what you would do? That yours is okay. I mean, hey, I'm just trying to figure it out here because I know that this is obviously, and I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. I know this is an important issue to you guys, and I've seen. I mean, there's I think 6 groupings, which would be 12 different pieces of legislation. And I didn't know if there was one specific one to speak to that was an official position. Okay. So you guys just stop everything on the floor and everywhere else and don't have one position yet.
I think we're not answering questions yet. Oh,
This is just for Senator Carter.
Yeah, whomever. Yeah, I'm asking for whomever is at the table on any of the ones that are coming up here. I just want to know if there's an official Freedom Caucus position of any of these initiative petition reform bills that you guys could say, hey, if we had one that we had to get behind, this one would be it. And it doesn't matter either one. I'm not trying to be combative. I'm just trying to whittle it down to which one is most important to you guys so that we can proceed forward to the logjam stop and we get back to regular business.
Senator, do you have a preference with the House districts?
Okay, so that one would be 61 and 83. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That would not be mine.
That would not be yours. Okay. Well, how gracious of you to let other. It's very nice of you. But okay, so that's helpful because I just wanted to make sure that if there was one that we were going to be pushing, that I knew which one it was. Thank you.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. I think the confusion has subsided. Let's take, okay, Senator Coleman has a question.
Senator Carter, is the position House districts federally or state House districts?
These are state House districts.
Okay, but not your bill. Which
Correct. The bill that I had last year. So the bill that I have currently does not address that.
Okay.
It's similar to your language.
Yeah, okay. So the Freedom Caucus is in support of
House districts.
State House districts, not federal House districts.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, got it.
Okay, now, let's have witnesses for and against Senator Carter's bill. So, senators for. Anybody? Against? Arnie? You have 1 minute. I think you can stand. You know.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C., AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate. Again, we're faking out and playing rotten games with Missourians. Shame on the sponsor for taking advantage and trampling of Missouri voting rights. You're making the task of referendum and initiative impossible, and voters are going to be disenfranchised, they're going to be fed up, and we're going to see a lower turnout at the primaries and the general elections. Do you really think we're dumb? Do you really think we're stupid as Missourians? Do you think that we as Missourians can't think for ourselves? We're just putting out candy and baiting the voter. You're looking for problems at the circuit courts, and I'll be the first one to stand in line to pay my $120 filing fee and challenge any of these baiting type proposals to voters, because you're hurting my heart. You're hurting Missourians. Let us be. Let Missourians control our destiny, and let's keep checks and balances on elected officials. That's my statement, Madam Chairwoman.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next witness in support? Anybody in support? Okay, then it's all opposition.
Elizabeth Franklin, I feel like we're old friends now. I'm going to kind of tag off with what Arnie was saying. And it does seem that there's a struggle to find these likable, what I'll call likable elements to go along with the way the majority is structured. Because last year, we had a clause in the bill that got the furthest, SJR43, that said it had a requirement to ensure disabled individuals have access to ballot measures. I thought that was important. But you know what? That's missing this year. Because probably why? It's probably already somewhere, just like citizenship and just like foreign involvement. That's concerning to voters. We don't need something said twice to clarify it. And if the citizenship was so important, I think it would go in Article 8, Paragraph 2, where citizenship is discussed in the Constitution. That's just my thoughts. I'm going to stick it that back there with initiative petitions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none. Make sure if you've already talked about something that it's not necessarily necessary to repeat it. Okay. Opposition. Anybody? Jeanette?
It's okay. Jeanette Mott Oxford from Paraquad, going on record in opposition. I've put my forms down for everything, but I drove a long way, so I might as well come up and say against them each one at a time, you know. So.
Thank you, Jeanette. Opposition.
Nancy Copenhaver, League of Women Voters, the state of Missouri, opposition of all three, but I've covered all the issues.
Thank you. Opposition?
Thank you. Denise Lieberman, Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, standing up in official opposition to all of the SJRs for the reasons stated in my last testimony.
Thank you. Opposition? Informational purposes only on Senator Carter's bill. Seeing none, do you have any final words, Senator Carter?
No.
Okay, thank you. You can retreat. Okay. Senator Eigel, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. State Senator Bill Eigel from the 23rd State Senatorial District. Happy to present SJR83, which modifies the initiative petition process. I think this is really, at a very basic level, this is a question of whether or not we want to protect our Constitution. And I can only assume by some of the testimony that we've heard today that the folks opposing this initiative must also not be real big fans of the national Constitution, which has a much higher bar for changing the founding document of the country than something as low as a simple majority. And so I know that the committee has been very patient. My bill, SJR83, if enacted by the voters, would actually require a concurrent majority of the state house districts to approve in addition to a simple majority. What this is going to actually functionally do is it's going to require a greater consensus in our state anytime we're going to change the founding document. It's not going to touch the simple majority requirement. It's just going to say that probably one of the biggest divides that we may have in the state, which is that between urban and rural interests, will have to come to an agreement if we're going to change the founding document of the state. That's what this does here. And you know, we've had a really odd conversation about whether or not not we should be opposed to non-citizens voting. I just don't understand that. I mean, if there's any entity on the planet that needs to be told something redundantly or told something twice, it's probably government. And so whether or not it's in there or not, I think this is an excellent opportunity to let our citizens come out and announce whether they want non-citizens voting in our elections. I mean, if you look at the New York City Council, to use the example from a different state, has actually considered legislation that would allow non-citizens to vote. The city of San Francisco has actually allowed non-citizens to vote going back to 2018 in municipal elections. So to say that, well, this isn't a problem, it is a problem in America. And I think that you have some folks that are finally in this Senate chamber willing to stand up and actually fight for the rights of the people and the protection of our Constitution. That's what this is about. And if there are different ways that we can explain that we're going to protect the right of the citizens to vote in our elections, I'm open to that discussion. But this whole idea that we shouldn't be bold about the fact that we don't want non-citizens voting in our elections, that doesn't make sense to me. And so, Madam Chairwoman, I know we've had a lot of discussion, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this on the floor of the Senate, but I'm happy to take any other questions.
Questions? Let's, I tell you what, let's first hear Senator Moon's bill, and then we'll open it to questions. Senator Moon.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Moon. I represent the 29th Senate District, and we are a farming community and #1 cow-calf producing county in the whole state. Do you know that? I think. Anyway, maybe we can talk about that too. But it's been mentioned that the Missouri Constitution is the basis for our laws, and it should be difficult to amend. And certainly there are some reasons for conversation about that, and that's why we're here today. You all know that the Constitution can be amended in a couple of different ways. One is via referendum, and the other is where the residents can place questions on the ballot, and that's essentially what we're here talking about today. 24 other states in our union allow such a provision, and I think it's a good thing. And I believe that we ought to preserve that in Missouri and do what we can to make sure that it sets a high bar for changing the Constitution. So currently, in order to approve a ballot measure, a simple majority of 50% plus one vote is required. And we've talked about Proposition 3 before, and Clean Missouri. I won't go into all that, except I do want to make a point about Prop 3, that it was interesting to find that out of 163 different political subdivisions or districts for the House, there were about 16 that actually voted in favor. And that the reason that happened is because they were larger population centers. And so is Jeremy still in the room? He was back here a little while ago. Seth back over there with Senator Schroer. Anyway, Seth's a big guy. I changed it to Seth because he's a little bit bigger than Jeremy. But let's say that there were a fire in this room and we all wanted to get out. That door does not exist. But Seth is over here and he says, ain't nobody going nowhere. What would happen? We would either say, well, he's a big guy, we're going to have to comply, or we would all rally together, I think, and probably overtake him and say our voices need to be heard as well, right? And so that may not be the best word picture out there, but it does sort of paint the same picture, because we had 16 political subdivisions, primarily in the Kansas City area, Jackson County, Columbia, St. Louis, the Springfield area, and then one kind of outlier was the New Madrid County in the southwest or southeast section. But they drove the vote, and they're the ones who actually caused that to pass. So don't you think that those in the extreme southeast, northeast, northwest, and southwest, wouldn't we want their voices to be heard in the same manner? I think we would. So the proposed change in Senate Joint Resolution 61 is still the 50% plus one votes, and then to have a concurrent majority in those areas all across the state to ratify. And I'm proposing that we use the state House districts, 163, and it takes 82 votes in the House to currently pass a bill. So why not lay that template over the constitutional amendments and say 82 of 163 House districts must also be represented in that 50% plus one majority. While some may be content to leave things as they are, let's consider what the Missouri Constitution says. I think it's important that we consider that too. I'm going to read from the Bill of Rights here, the sentence prior to. It says, in order to assert our rights, acknowledge our duties, and proclaim the principles on which our government is founded, we declare that the people of this state have the inherent, sole, and exclusive right to regulate the internal government. The internal government, that goes down to us too, I believe. And what we're trying to do here with the provisions of the Constitution, and police thereof, and to alter and abolish their Constitution in form of government whenever they may deem necessary to their safety and happiness, provided such change be not repugnant to the Constitution of the United States. Now, I read that because that's important, and that's where I've been hearing from folks who say, well, what about us? I mean, our votes seem to not count, and we're hearing the opposite say, well, we want every vote to count, right? That's all we're saying. We want that to happen, and this concurrent majority ratification process would allow that to happen, even in the most remote areas of the state. Here's something that was really alarming to me. Some information was just pulled out of some of the ballot initiatives that are forming now. It's not just because of this, but this is something that should, those who believe that life is precious and that we should do everything we can to protect all life, whether the race, the sex, the gender, the nationality, whatever it is. Here's some of the highlights of these provisions. All abortions are protected up to a full-term baby. Horrendous. And we want to have something like that in our Constitution. This should rile up everybody. I don't care where you stand, but a baby is a baby. A developing in the womb should be protected at all costs. And that includes partial birth abortions too. No laws can be enacted that protect the rights of the baby. Do they not have a voice? You've probably seen The Silent Scream by Bernard Nathanson, where this baby, when the suction is put on his rear, cries out, but it's a silent voice because he's in the womb. It's horrendous that we would allow stuff like that. The state cannot regulate or punish organizations that perform or train to perform abortion. Pro-life language in the FRA, the federal reimbursement allowance, would be deemed unconstitutional, as would any laws that deny Planned Parenthood funding that's generally available to the entities. We must not allow a small demographic to decide these important issues. Concurrent majority ratification is a possible solution to the present-day dilemma. And I meant to say this when I got to the part about the internal government. This committee is part of that, and yet you have to be present. In the day of technology, we require you, if you're not here, you don't have a voice. I have with me in this box, I wish it were food, but this is probably even better, 450 witness forms. And I know they're not going to be submitted in the record. We need to change that because these people have voices too. There's some in opposition. We included them. They should be included. Also, the ones who are in support. But to disallow these people to have their voice on these witness forms, that's something we've got to change. And I don't remember when it was, but it's been during the time I've been here in the Senate. But Madam Chairwoman, would you help me voice that concern? Because these are real people. They're not artificial intelligence. They're real people, and they want to have their voices heard too. I would submit these to you, even though they're not going to be in part of the record, to read them and to understand why they want changes such as these two bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Senator Rizzo.
Okay, since this is the official Freedom Caucus position on the initiative petition reform process, I just want to be clear so I have it right. This has to be a 50+1 and then a majority of the State House districts. So that would be what.
Senator, I'm sorry, I am not a spokesperson for the Freedom Caucus.
I understand that. I guess I'm more, I get that. That's what they've said, so I'm just trying to figure out what it does here, real quick.
I would say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, I would say that Senate Joint Resolution 61 would, in my view, clear the logjam. So let's get this to the floor, and the logjam will, those logs will flow, and we can harvest the products.
Understood. I'm just trying to understand what's going to clear it here real quick. So it's just, it would be 50+1. And then just what is it, 163 over there? So, but 83, what is it?
82.
82, excuse me. So 82 House members, you'd be fine. And then obviously the House, excuse me, House districts. I apologize. Okay, so I just wanted to understand that, because if this is going to be where everyone's going to be at, I wanted to understand it. Thank you.
Any more questions? Senator Coleman.
Can you help me remember, what were the two bills that you had for your motions to have things be brought directly to the floor? Which of the two bills were they?
One
was one day and one was another.
One was
Which one?
83 was the first day, and one was 77.
Okay. And you are no longer wanting the 51? That was as
Yes,
earlier
I
version?
think so. 51 was the first one that I filed, and as we continue to have this conversation, because this conversation, as you know, Senator, has been going on for many months, we found that there was going to be more consensus around the language that's currently identified by 83, and the same as 61.
Well, but so 61, I think, is in Article 3, and 77 and 83 are Article 12? Have I got it?
Go ahead.
They're flipped. Okay. So your preference is that this is done through Article 3 or Article 12?
Mine is 12.
You prefer 12, Senator Moon. Senator Eigel, do you have a preference?
I've got mine currently in 3, but honestly, if that's the holdup, I think we can probably negotiate around that.
I think your 83 is in 12, and your 51 is in 3. So
Oh, I'm sorry, because I think I had it. My 51 had it in 3. Sorry, there's a lot of.
I know,
articles on
listen, we need a chart, because it's like
I think-
everybody's are
I
slightly
think 12 is
different.
good. I think 12 is good. And again, I'm open to several of these different combinations. So
Because none of those are the ones that Missouri Right to Life has testified in support of.
Okay.
I just was making sure because that was the case.
We can win them over.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yes, Senator Washington.
Hi. Senator Eigel, I just have a couple of questions. Now, you mentioned San Francisco and New York City are trying to implement something to have non-citizens vote.
Well, no, I think in the case of San Francisco, they already implemented it. It actually has been active since 2018.
Okay. What's that got to do with Missouri?
Well, so I heard the contention that, hey, this isn't a problem. This isn't, what we don't see what the reinforcement is required. Well, I think that there are forces in this country, and if given half an opportunity here in the state of Missouri, would take advantage of any such opportunities that would try to put that in our Constitution. So I just want to forestall that by making it crystal clear that we don't believe that non-citizens ought to be voting in our elections, and we've got an amendment before us right now that would explicitly state that in the Constitution. You know what? I'd be willing to put it into our Constitution 10 times if that's what it takes. So
are you familiar with the phrase, and I think it might be an amendment to the U.S. Constitution, innocent until proven guilty?
I'm familiar with the phrase that we came here to protect the
It's a
Constitution.
yes or
and
no
that's what I'm doing.
question, sir. Are you familiar with the phrase innocent until proven guilty?
Senator, I appreciate you want to be aggressive with me. I really
I'm not
do.
trying to be
But
aggressive.
I'm
I
gonna
just
give you the
asked you a
answers
question.
that I'm going to give you when you ask me a question. So if you have another question, let's hear it.
That is the question.
I just gave you an answer.
You didn't.
I did.
I interrupted you, so you didn't actually complete your thought.
Thank you, Senator.
The next question is, you mentioned about it being more difficult to change the U.S. Constitution than
Yeah, I think
with
that's
our
pretty
IP
clear.
structure.
That's very clear. I don't know that anybody could make the case that it's more difficult to change the Missouri Constitution than the federal one. I stand by that.
Do you know how
Do
many
you disagree
people?
with that, Senator?
Do you know how many? I'm not on.
I mean,
it's not
maybe
my.
a
It's
yes
not,
or no
it's not
answer.
my
Just
bill.
a yes or no answer, Senator.
If I was sitting where you are, I would give you all the answers. But you're in the hot seat, not me. So, do you know how many states voted to approve Amendment 13 to the U.S. Constitution?
So I know that 26 states don't even have an initiative petition process. So I want to go back to what I said earlier, which is this is about protecting the Constitution of Missouri. And I understand you don't seem to be a big fan of that. And if you're not a fan of that, I can't make that decision for you.
So
That's a
first of all,
conversation-
if you want me to
that's a
get
conversation you'll have
aggressive,
with your
put stuff in my
constituents.
mouth. I never said any of that. I asked you a simple question, and you are not answering.
Let's have a civil
But do not
conversation
attack
here.
me, because I did not attack you. And that is not fair. I asked you a question. You brought yourself here. You don't know what my actions are. You have no idea how I feel about this. In fact, some of the bills last year I voted yes for.
Pretty sure it's clear.
Bill
No, it's
Handler,
not.
I feel that you need to respect the senator sitting up here on the committee, and if she's speaking, let her say what she wants to say and ask the question she wants to ask you, and then you can reply.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
I have nothing further. You know, once the cameras are gone, we'll do it on the floor.
Any questions for the bill handler? Okay, we're going to have witnesses come forward in support. Again, if you've been up here and said what you said, don't repeat that. Say something different.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So,
yeah.
For the record, Ron Calzone, one of the directors of Missouri First. I was going to ask you that. Since we are starting over with a new bill, can we have at least a few 3 minutes?
No, we just don't have time.
Okay. I'll talk fast if you listen fast.
You just need to talk fast.
Okay, so since probably about 2008, I have been consistently against IP reform. I think some of those years I have actually been responsible for killing the IP reform bills. I support, however, SJR61 and 83 because they're not IP reform. These are ratification reform bills. There is a distinction. They do not affect the people's right or the process of using the initiative petition process. I want to point out that in 2022, that's when what changed. That was when Representative Bill Kidd for the first time introduced the concurrent majority ratification concept. So that's the first time that I've seen in all of those years, those decades, an equitable way to deal with this. And fortunately, the House and the Senate are rallying around that idea. CMR has to have a few characteristics. It needs to be in Article 12. It has got to be in Article 12 because it's got to address all three different ways that you can amend the Constitution.
That's 1 minute, sir. If you have more you want to say, you're probably going to have to get around to the committee's offices.
Okay, and maybe someone will ask me why it needs to be in Article 12, and they might ask me about...
Okay. Any questions for the witness? Senator Carter.
Okay, thank you, Senator. So it needs to be in Article 12 because there's three different ways you can propose amendments to the Missouri Constitution. You can do it either by the initiative petition process, the legislature can do it, or a constitutional convention can propose amendments to the Constitution. They all go on the ballot, and they should all take the same ratification process. It would be foolish for us to say that an initiative petition and maybe the legislature takes a special higher threshold, but you could change the entire Constitution if you do it through a constitutional convention. You can't protect all three different ways if you do it in Article 3. That's why it's got to be in Article 12. And I would also, if you want to know why House districts are important, I would explain that too, and why there is not a one-way and one-vote problem.
Well, let's just
Crawford,
get to
if you wanted to.
questions. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. In support?
Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Bev Valen. I'm president of Liberty Link Missouri, and I'd like to go on record for supporting both SJR83 and SJR61 because I appreciate the wisdom of our founding fathers by giving us the electoral college approach to electing our president, and this is the electoral college approach to ratifying our Missouri Constitution. It represents all of Missouri, not just the population centers.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Bev. In opposition, 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. The Senate needs to fall in line with the House on electronic submission. Let's get into today's age. Citizenship stamp or emblem on our state's driver's license, HB 1413, was heard today in the Special Committee of Homeland Security. What is next? Will it be our registered voting number tattooed on our arms or our foreheads? When will it stop, and when will we put Missourians first, as the governor said in his State of the State? We're holding Missourians hostage and negotiating what goes on the floor, again, right here in committee. Nothing will get accomplished with the People's Initiative. Nothing will get accomplished in the Missouri Senate. It's about ego, political theater, and the heck with 6 million Missourians. Everyone's voice is currently being heard. It takes literally 10 minutes to go to a precinct and cast your vote or your ballot. We as Missourians are the regulators. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Those in support and support?
Lisa Panett, Armorine, and I'm just here to support this one. This set we support because of the House districts.
Thank you. In opposition? Opposition.
Good afternoon. Denise Lieberman, Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. We oppose these measures for the reasons already stated. In addition, I do have concerns about the provisions in this, in the measure we just heard, that would give the legislature exclusive authority to enforce the provisions of the Constitution. Senator Washington, I think you asked a question about that earlier, and I think there was a response related to that the courts can't enact legislation, which of course they cannot. This body can, the people can through the initiative petition process, but it is up to the courts to interpret the provision of the Constitution, and legislatures cannot do that.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Senator Washington.
I just want to clarify because I think the statement might have been a misstatement when I asked the question about exclusive authority. I think they may have said that they didn't believe the court can make laws. And I just want us to be clear that the court does, in fact, through cases, make laws.
Right. The courts interpret the laws, and in doing so can create legal tests and legal interpretations as to what the laws mean.
Which must be followed.
Correct.
Say something like Brown versus Board of Education.
Of course.
Or Dobbs or something.
That's right.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question? Yes, Senator Carter.
I'm really curious. I come from a rural district, and they're saying the opposite. They're saying that their voice is being drowned out by the more populated areas. And so what do you do for them to make them feel like they have an equal voice?
No, and I understand your point. And Missouri Voter Protection Coalition believes that all voices deserve to be heard. However, when we undertake a concurrent majority process like have been proposed in all of these bills, whether it's congressional districts, Senate districts, or House districts, it actually gives folks in those rural communities their votes greater weight than others. And that's something that is antithetical to our Constitution's promise of one person, one vote. I mean, the truth of the matter is that folks that want to get elected, people that want to pass ballot measures, should try to appeal to all of the state. And the truth of the matter is, when they appeal to the majority of the voters in this state, they win. And that is a time-honored process that has been part of our Constitution for more than a century, and really is the way that fairness works. If we start weighing rural votes more heavily than other kinds of votes, and it just so happens that this proposal would tend to weigh rural votes more heavily, but there's nothing explicit in this language that would require that. It erodes the whole concept of one person, one vote, because people's votes would not be weighed equally.
You have to have a vast majority of the state with the concurrent majority. So you do have people weighing. It does equalize. It doesn't make one bigger than the other.
It would do so, Senator, because it would mean that even measures that obtain the support of a majority of Missouri's voters wouldn't necessarily pass unless they also were able to pass in some of these other districts, meaning it would elevate the ultimate threshold well beyond 50%.
It's really interesting to me that a vast majority of the time that we spend in the legislature, we're talking about the importance of the minority voice, right? But yet, when it comes to changing our Constitution, we totally leave out the fact that we have minorities that are not being represented currently. So thank you.
Questions, Senator Washington?
I just have a quick follow-up. So our last gubernatorial election, our governor got 57%, right? 57.11 is what it shows. Now, if we use that type of philosophy from this bill towards something like that, then he would have had to win at least 50% of all House district seats, right? And so we know that he did not. And so that would mean that we might not have our governor who, whatever other people like, I like me some Governor Parson. In fact, my grandson thinks that's his friend. Him and Lieutenant Governor Kehoe, those are his friends. He told me they work here at the Capitol. No, the castle, that's what it's called. So that shows that if we said that you have to do every district, then that shows that we wouldn't have all of our statewide elected folks that we have now, including our senators, because there are several districts that would not have passed. Is that correct?
Yes, and these measures would leave open what the ultimate threshold necessary for passage would be, but it certainly would be well more than 50%. And to be clear, none of these proposals would impose that same rule on candidates running for office. They would still be voted in just like they are now, just like voters get to vote in their will by a majority.
And like Mr. Sam Lee mentioned earlier, we actually have a plurality, because if there had been a third or fourth candidate, it's whoever has the most. We're not like some states that say you have to meet the 50% threshold. Say like Georgia, you have to meet 50%, which is why they have the runoffs, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Senator.
thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none. Next witness in opposition. Support.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gail Griswold with Armorvine. I would like to just say a couple things were mentioned. Senator Carter mentioned the protecting the minority, and I think I come from a rural area. I'm also president of Camden School Board, and our voices are not being heard at the state. So I think that for any party to claim that they protect minorities is pretty hypocritical that they want to protect the majority instead. And then also, as far as the governor comment, last time I checked, the governor doesn't make sweeping changes to the Constitution on his own. So I don't really think that's apples to apples. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none. Yes, Senator Washington.
Does the Secretary of State control anything with respect to our elections?
Yes.
Okay, so the comment wasn't just the governor. Does Senator Hawley have a say in D.C.?
I only spoke, you talk about the governor. Did you speak about
I said
Holly?
all statewide electeds. So that means the governor, the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, treasurer, auditor, and our 2 U.S. senators.
So what was your question?
Does Senator Hawley have the ability to make policy in D.C.?
He has a vote.
Okay. So that's making policy, right?
Not on his own, not as an individual. He cannot change the Constitution on his own as an individual.
Okay.
There's checks and balances, which is good.
So, and that's what we're saying here. We need checks and balances. So to take the court out of this would alleviate the check and balance, right?
I don't think the court should be making laws.
But the court should have the ability to interpret, because if the courts wasn't making laws, we wouldn't even be having this abortion conversation, because the only reason that we're having that is because the courts said give it back to the states. The only reason I'm here today is because the court said let black people finally go to school, let black people finally get elected for office. The only reason that you can be on the Hampton School Board is Kempton. I'm sorry, you say Kempton?
Camdenton. It's
Camdenton. I know where Camdenton is. Yeah. My cousins went there. My cousins live in Lynn Creek. Yeah. The only reason you're allowed to be there is because the courts said it was okay for women to vote and hold office. So you're saying that the court shouldn't have anything to do with that. So should we just rewind all of those things and we go back to me, well, see, I would be a house person, but my brother, he would be out in the field, but I would be in the house cooking, and I do that well, and you would just be able to do nothing. No credit cards, no ability to buy your own home, which my mother couldn't 70 years ago, no ability to have a checking account or any of those things. Are you saying that the court should never have interfered in that? It should stay out of our business from now on?
So you said a lot of things. Let me try to disseminate that a little bit.
I just pointed out all the things that we have as women and African and minorities that the court gave us.
Respond to that if you allow me to. I would say that as made, as somebody talked about it before, we've changed the Constitution multiple times. And I think this is one of those times that we, the people, change the Constitution again because we wanted black people to be able to vote. We wanted women to be able to vote. So now we're coming and seeing that there's a problem again. And we want to change the Constitution.
We actually didn't change that in Missouri, but that's okay. Missouri actually said no to black people voting, and they also said no to Missouri voting. That all came from the feds. So I'm asking you about the courts.
At the federal level or the state level?
From the courts.
Okay, so you're asking me if the court should have a weigh-in on our Constitution, and this bill doesn't allow that. That's what you're asking me?
No, I'm asking you if the court should have an opportunity to interpret this should legislation come up, and this bill does not allow them to have any say ever.
I think there's a problem with the courts legislating, so I would not like to have their weigh-in. I'd rather have we the people over the courts any day. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? These people are nuts. Seeing none, thank you. In opposition? Opposition. Okay, Jeanette?
Jeanette Mott, Oxford for Perequod, going on record in opposition. I did want to comment, though, on something that Senator Moon said that I'd like to affirm, which is people with disabilities would really appreciate it if the Senate would create a way that we can testify in a similar way that we do in the House, where we submit testimony through a House portal. In January of 2023, Call-A-Ride, the paratransit company in St. Louis for people with disabilities, denied 18,000 rides. They didn't have adequate capacity to provide those rides. And they still denied almost 7,000 rides in November, the most recent data available. Local transportation is horrible for people with disabilities. It's even worse to try to get down here. Once you get here, some days I can't find parking, and it can be, very, very hard to get around to the carriage side. They used to let me go through the garage. They won't do that anymore. Sometimes I can't get parking on either side. So this building has hardships for people with disabilities. Making it more easy for Missourians with disabilities to have their voices officially go on record would be very much appreciated, and we hope that you will consider that. So thank you for bringing that up, Senator Moon. I welcome any questions.
Seeing none. In support. Support. Go ahead. I couldn't remember what I was on.
Hello, I'm Kerry Wells, and I'm representing Freedom Principle, Missouri. We think that the real problem in the current process is it's too easy for dark money to influence and change our Constitution with a low threshold of a simple majority. We think the House districts, the state House districts are the best way to go. And in response to a previous comment, we believe that according to Article 3 of the Missouri Constitution, Section 1, it states that districts shall be as nearly equal as practicable in population and shall be drawn on the basis of one person, one vote. I live in southwest Missouri. There's a lot of rural counties. Because the current process allows a concentration of 50+1, the big money can go and advertise in the big money markets, and they don't have to appeal or come to us. So the weighted is against us, and this would even things out to give us a true reflection and ability to vote.
Thank you. Questions for the witness? Seeing none. Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Elizabeth Franklin. I just wanted to also pick up on what Senator Moon mentioned. and I think it would be a good idea if there was online testimony. But those of you who probably know the hearings held last week in the IP, there was 98.7% in opposition to change of the IP. You'd get more feedback, and perhaps you'd get more support. I'm not sure. I would say, as these bills are all pulled together and whatever the Freedom Caucus decides is the best one to coalesce around, I would prefer and recommend that the extras be pushed to the side. This is where they come out. This is where the bills get amended. It's on the Senate side before it's sent over, and take those things out. For rural voters that have been discussing this here today, myself included, clarity is good. So take those things out that really don't do anything, and let the most important element rise to the top.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you guys are using the microphones on the table.
I'm sorry.
The other ones are not transmitting.
Okay, thank you.
And also keep in mind, it's not just the Freedom Caucus that has a good bill, okay? There's,
I sit connected.
you know, thank you.
Remind the senators.
Yeah. Okay, in a opposition, in support. Okay, one of you go first. Okay, 1 minute, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I really don't have a lot of detail here. Is the mic working? It seems like it now.
State your name, please.
My name is Dave Guest. I'm a retired software engineer in Lincoln County now. I just find it shameful to look at the Missouri Constitution as it is right now. It's got all these little patches of gobs of detailed law in it, and that seems ridiculous to me for a founding document. I support this resolution, particularly 61, but anything else that achieves the same result is fine by me. The resolution is clearly patterned after our national constitution in that it samples both the people as a whole and the particular regions as our states. Our states get 2 senators. Doesn't matter how big they are, but they get 2 states. And yes, and also I just thought Senator Crawford said something that struck me.
Thank you,
a
sir.
moment ago. I don't remember.
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry.
sir. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Support?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Paul Venable. I'm chairman of the Constitution Party of Missouri. I come in support of Senate Joint Resolution 61. I believe it most closely models the United States Constitution. It also, the founders intended to avoid a pure democracy, and in fact, and in so doing so, gave us a Republican form of government. So my issue isn't necessarily with. Well, my issue is with that we have, with our current petition process, a pure democracy. All right? Our founders, our framers of the Republic, had specific words to say about how dangerous they were. Okay, and that, and one of the shortest quotes we were given was by Benjamin Franklin: 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for dinner. He was attributed that, but I don't know that. If he didn't say it, he should have, because that's what we're looking at. And I live in a rural community also, and there are some big issues coming up. They're important to us that I think are not being heard.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing, yes.
Just a real
Senator
quick question.
Washington.
Yeah, sure.
Who votes on amendments to the U.S. Constitution?
Who votes on amendments to the U.S. Constitution? Is that
Uh-huh.
correct? The states, the stakeholders in the Constitution, ratify amendments. Correct? So,
Who ratified Amendment 13? When did who in Missouri voted to ratify that?
which one?
13, 14,
Amendment
19, 20.
Which Amendment 13?
The U.S. Constitution, Amendment 13, the one that provides the opportunity for you and I to sit here today.
Okay. So,
Because you said that this most closely models the U.S. Constitution.
yes,
And so the U.S. Constitution is not voted on by constituents or by Americans,
it's
right?
voted on by the states,
Okay.
correct?
So it's ratified by the
It's
states.
ratified by the states.
Right. And this isn't a ratification. This is an actual change in how amendments are done.
That's correct.
Okay, thank
so
you.
it's concurrent majority ratification.
Any questions?
Question.
Yes, Senator Carter.
So help me understand what you're thinking. This is dealing with, do you understand that this is dealing with the ratification of how we change our constitution?
Yes, that's correct.
So what you're saying is, this is most like the electoral college that we use to ratify
Yes, instead of direct election or direct,
a popular vote,
popular
basically.
vote, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Senator Washington.
Can you go ahead and define ratification? Because my understanding is ratification is something that's already been done, and you vote whether or not you want it or not. This is not that. This is new law. So this isn't we voted for it. Ratification would be if we voted for this, if we changed it as a legislature and then put it before the citizens to say yes or no, not an initial, what do the citizens get to decide? We're just going to be voting on what language is put before the citizens, not to ratify something that's already been decided.
Okay, so I want to make sure that I understand your question, because I believe that this resolution promotes concurrent majority ratification. Am I wrong?
Yes, you're wrong.
Okay.
I don't read it that way because I read ratification as, and I'll just use it something simple, like with my sorority. I'll vote for my regional director in my sorority, but she doesn't become the regional director officially until we go to a national conference and we ratify the vote that has already been made.
Okay.
And so that is my understanding of ratification. And we do that the same in the National Bar Association, the American Bar Association, the Women Lawyers, and every other organization that I'm in that has national presence. We just take the votes that have already been made, like on the different regions or whatever, and then we ratify them when we come together collectively.
Okay, thank you, Senator. So the question is, I want to make sure again that I understand you correctly. When a constitutional amendment goes before the people and they vote for it, is that a ratification?
Yeah, because it's already been approved by Congress to come to us. So a ratification requires I guess to make it easy, it requires 2 levels of voting. It has to have, in this instance, it will have to have us as a legislator vote for this, and then we put it before the people who would ratify the vote.
Okay.
So, but when it's just a one vote, because we're not voting, we will not be voting whether or not to approve this or not approve this as a legislature. We are just voting as a legislature as to what language will go before the people.
Oh, that part I understand. You're talking about for whatever this proposal is, that's what we're voting for.
Right, but we won't. But there's no ratification because it hasn't been voted. But ratification requires 2 votes.
Right, but ma'am, but then the result of it, correct? If it passes, would change the ratification process.
No.
Is that correct?
No.
Am I-
No, it would just go on to the Constitution. There wouldn't be a second vote for ratification. It would just be an amendment to the Constitution.
Correct, but the amendment is what we're addressing.
But
and that's
sir,
correct.
just to make it simple, and I know we got to go. All ratification has to have 2 votes, and there's only 1 vote for this. If we use Senator Carter's version and it goes before the people and they pass it, it doesn't have to be ratified. It goes on to the Constitution.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, would it be okay for me to ask the sponsor if I understood this correctly?
You can ask them offline.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, anybody else in opposition?
Good afternoon, Denise Lieberman, Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. We're opposed to this. Just want to make a quick clarification. It's not apropos to compare the United States Constitution with the Missouri Constitution. There is no process for voters to amend the United States Constitution directly. It is a different structure of body. Whereas here in the state of Missouri, voters do have a constitutionally protected route to propose measures. It is a grueling process to get enough support to get those measures on the ballot before the people, and then it is left to the popular vote of the people. There is no comparative process like that at the federal level, and so the comparisons are not apt in this instance.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
Sure.
quickly.
So are you proposing that we just get rid of the IP process?
Just the opposite, Senator. I'm suggesting that, as in half the states around the country, our Constitution has made a path for citizens to be able to directly propose measures that they care about, and if enough people agree, it gets on the ballot, and if the majority of those people vote to enact them, they can do so. It is a separate path from the representative democracy that we have here in our legislature. And so I am suggesting just the opposite, that we should protect this sacred constitutional right that gives Missourians the ability to make their voices heard in a way that we don't have at the federal level.
So most states don't have an IP report. They don't have a process.
Approximately
but they do have
half.
representative elected officials, right, that represent their districts, that create laws, and that is the representative government that they have.
Yes, and we have that here in Missouri, but we also have a path for Missourians to be able to propose measures on their own to their fellow citizens. And it's something that is very valuable. It's contained in the constitutions of about half the state, and it's particularly valuable where citizens don't necessarily feel that their voices are being heard in their representative bodies.
Thank you. Going forward, anybody that steps up to the microphone, just say you're for or against. We've got three more bills to hear. We've got caucus, and we've got to be on the floor. So, anyone else in support? Anybody else against?
I'll just speak as a citizen. Marilyn McLeod from Columbia, Missouri. Organization I'm with has already submitted,
Okay.
but I'm against the bill.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone else against or for? Okay, seeing none. Informational purposes? Seeing none. Thank you. And now we will move on to Senator Schroer. SJR73. Is he in the room? There he is. You may begin, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Schroer, Senate District 2, St. Charles County, presenting Senate Joint Resolution 73. This is a proposed constitutional amendment in Missouri aimed at altering the procedures for introducing and voting on initiative petitions proposing constitutional amendments only. The bill mandates that individuals or entities filing such petitions must specify if a particular campaign committee is responsible for the measure, and any supporting campaign committees must inform the Secretary of State. Additionally, it revises the voter approval threshold based on the percentage of campaign contributions received, distinguishing between in-state and out-of-state contributions. The idea here is to preserve amending the Missouri State Constitution for Missouri citizens and not out-of-state billionaires that want to change our Constitution for their benefit. Under SJR 73, sponsoring and supporting campaign committees are obligated to submit detailed reports on contributions, distinguishing between the in-state and out-of-state sources before specified deadlines preceding the election. The Secretary of State is tasked with calculating the voter-approved threshold based on these contributions, adjusting the threshold accordingly. A complaint process is outlined in this bill, allowing individuals to challenge the accuracy of campaign contribution disclosures or the calculation of the voter approval threshold within a specific time frame, with the state auditor and attorney general involved in the investigation and resolution process. Furthermore, SJR73 outlines unlawful actions, including the prohibition of concealing the actual source of contributions to campaign committees, especially from foreign governments or political entities. Foreign entities are barred from sponsoring or financially influencing initiative petitions in Missouri, with stringent penalties, including felony charges established for violations. The bill aims to enhance transparency and accountability in the IP process while safeguarding against foreign influence and improper contributions. I know it's a little bit different. I believe it's the first of its kind, so I would be open to any questions.
Questions for the bill handler? Seeing none. Witnesses for the bill? Okay, witnesses against the bill?
Thank you very much, Madam
Just-
Chairwoman.
If you, go ahead, just say you're for or against.
I would like to make a protest
No,
on the record.
no.
We drove 2
You
hours
know
to
what?
get here.
I did too.
This will be struck down by the Cole County and St. Charles County Court. I'm a definite no. And Mr. Schroer, you don't represent the citizens of St. Charles
Anybody
County. Resign.
next in support? Anyone against?
Nancy Copenhaver for the League of Women Voters of Missouri against.
Thank you. Support? Against? Jeanette?
Jeanette Mott Oxford for Paraquat against.
Thank you. Against?
Denise Lieberman, Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, against.
Against?
Elizabeth Franklin, Clinton County, Missouri, rural area, against.
Against? Support? Informational purposes only? Seeing none, we will now move to SJR56, Senator Cierpiot. I like your tie. Very appropriate.
Thanks. I hope to be wearing it in a couple of weeks.
That's right. Go Chiefs.
Good afternoon still? Yeah, good afternoon. Madam Chairman, I am Mike Cierpiot from the 8th Senate District in Jackson County. I'm here today presenting Senate Joint Resolution 56. Senate Joint Resolution 56 further defines what an initiative petition can address. Presently, an IP must only address a single subject. As we have seen, that single subject can be vast and used to mislead the public. Recently, an initiative known as Clean Missouri was offered as a single subject, the subject being the General Assembly. It was 7 pages of regular print. The first 2 covered ethics issues, revolving door, gift bans, etc. All sweeteners for the actual effort, a very biased, complex redistricting plan. On its own, I believe this redistricting plan would never pass. But with these sweeteners, the vast majority of voters voted for what they read in the summary. Senate Joint Resolution 56 will make future IP efforts more honest. No sweeteners, only a single issue that is a petitioner's plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the committee? Yes.
I really appreciate this piece of legislation. I know that there were a lot of people in my area that didn't realize that they were changing the Constitution to 33 pages, so thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, in support?
Probably nobody.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate. I'm in support of this because I believe in single issues, and I would ask that this be amended and must apply to the General Assembly.
Thank you. Yeah. Against? In support? Against? In support. Informational purposes only? Thank you. Now we are going to go to SJR59, Senator Bratton.
Good afternoon, soon to be evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Rick Bratton, the 31st Senatorial District. I have Senate Joint Resolution 59. What this is for concurrent majority ratification, but it has to do with what is the districts. What differs mine from the others is mine is Senate districts as opposed to House districts or state House districts or congressional House districts. It also does have the the voter protection, ensuring that we do not have illegals participating in our election process. Again, as Senator Eigel pointed out, I think we need a belt and suspenders approach to ensure that we have a legal voting base. So that does include this. This is just like the electoral process. The way that we ratify an election of a president has to do with these states that have electorates, and they determine. And we don't have a popular vote for the very fact that you don't have California, don't have New York determining for the entire duration of the entire United States. Who is the president? It's the way that it's ensuring that the minority states have a say in that process. And that's exactly what's happening here. It is a ratification of a constitutional amendment, and it's protecting the Constitution as we see. It's expensive. Yes, it is expensive to run an initiative, petition, direct democracy amendment. But the only ones that are able to afford that are your out-of-state interests wanting to put abortion or Medicaid expansion or marijuana, these sorts of things into the Constitution with their nice, lofty campaigns. And that's what this will hopefully at least put a belt and suspenders approach of protecting our founding document. We swear an oath to the Constitution. It's not a statute book. We swear an oath of this to protect it. So that is why the bar needs to be raised up. We have a 75% threshold to amend the United States Constitution. This is still a 50+1 ratification in each district. So this isn't changing that. It's not even changing actually the initiative petition process at all. It's just a ratification. So thank you. I know we have to finish up, but I just...
Okay, committee members, any questions? Seeing none. In support? Seeing none. Against?
Madam Chairwoman, Arnie C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate. A hard no. The senatorial districts are not apportioned correctly, and I ask the committee to defeat this bill.
Thank you. Opposed?
Denise Lieberman, Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, in opposition.
Thank you. Opposed?
Nancy Copenhaver, League of Women Voters of Missouri, opposed.
Opposed?
Jeanette Oxford, Paraquat, opposed.
Thank you. Opposed?
Elizabeth Franklin, rural Missouri, opposed, and we do not have illegals voting right now.
Support? Opposed. One last time. Informational purposes only. Seeing now none, have a great afternoon, and local government and elections is officially adjourned.
Wow. Right on the money.
Yeah.